Welcome, everyone. This is your friend, the DN What If, here with another exciting fanfiction. Today, we're diving into the story of What If Deku Became Daredevil? If you enjoy this video, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more fanfiction content just like this. Now, let's get started with the fanfic. My Hero Academia has become the newest show and anime I've gotten into, and I've grown to really enjoy it, so I've decided to write my first story of it. While I admit I'm not fully behind it and some stuff I need to catch up on, I've got the gist of enough. I've seen stories where Izuku has gotten superpowers of other heroes, and originally I had first thought of him as a Green Lantern, but looking around I noticed that there was quite a few of them where he had it. So I decided to scratch that and go for something else. I then had the idea while browsing YouTube for him to gain the powers and abilities of another superhero, Daredevil. He becomes the Devil of UA with the enhanced reflexes and senses, as well as gaining one for all as well. He is not gonna be OP though. As for pairings, I'm leaning towards him and Tsuyu, as she's become my favorite girl in MHA. You're not going to see the Avengers or Iron Man getting involved, as I don't want it to be a jumbled mess with too many characters. If I do add more Marvel to it, it'd be staying more in line of the Punisher and possibly the Hand as part of the League of Villains and someone for the role of Kingpin. Katsuki fans, I will say in advance you probably won't like the first couple of chapters. Disclaimer, I don't own My Hero Academia. Why don't you just go jump off the roof? That way maybe in the next life you'll be born with a quirk. Hearing those words repeating in his head, the 14-year-old boy solemnly walked through the streets, his head downward so that no one would be able to see his face. The mocking and hateful words that he had heard just an hour earlier at the end of school. Katsuki, Izuku Midoriya said, "You are wrong about me," he said to himself, referring to the one who had said that to him earlier today at the end of school. If there was one thing that the young teenager wanted to be anything more in the world, since he was 4 years old, it was to become a hero. Heroes, they were the symbol of peace and justice, heroic men and women who risked their lives to save innocents and combat evil. Izuku had longed to become one, to join their ranks, to be known as one of the greatest heroes ever. To stand alongside his idol, who was the inspiration and the hope of billions worldwide, who no matter what always won no matter the odds and saved the day. All Might. However, life, for some reason, seemed to have it in for Izuku. To become a hero, you needed what was known as a quirk. 80% of the planet's population possessed one which granted them abilities and powers, whether it would be super strength or transforming your body, for example. But Izuku was one of the unlucky few who didn't have one. To this day, he still remembered the doctor saying he couldn't become a hero and that he was quirkless, and how his mother had broken down sobbing, hugging him that day, apologizing over and over how that he couldn't achieve his dreams. However, Izuku wasn't going to let that stop him. In fact, it only renewed his determination to become one. He spent hours and days watching tapes and videos of heroes in action, studying them and learning how they fought. From MD Lady to Eraserhead, he learned how they fought in the hope of learning how they did so he too could learn it and maybe, just maybe, become a hero just by watching and analyzing their moves. Listen, Midoriya, it's a nice dream, but those without quirks can't become heroes. Maybe you do have a quirk, what with all the crying you do. Izuku, I'm so sorry. The words of the doctor, his classmates and his mother entered his head, telling him over and over that he couldn't become a hero and it'd be best to give up his dream. Note it didn't matter what anyone said. It didn't matter what the doctors, his mother or Katsuki said. There was those who had quirks that was deemed useless and a joke, like one in America who could communicate with squirrels, and yet they had become a hero as well. If they could with something like that, then so could he as well. Izuku lifted up his head and his green eyes hardened in resolve. He will become a hero. He'd show everyone that he too could become one, and he'd become the greatest hero to ever exist, even greater than All Might. I will enter UA. I swear it, I'm going to enter it and I will become a hero, he said in proclamation. Izuku continued walking, and a noticeable step was in his stroll now, full of confidence and determination. Already he was lost in thought and mumbling to himself on how he could find a way to enter. What the hell's got him in such a cocky mood now? Katsuki Bakugo said as he saw him from around the corner. the blonde standing there by himself looking on, an annoyed look on his face at what he was seeing. "Stupid Deku," Katsuki muttered to himself, a disdainful look on his eyes. Why the hell was he still persisting on becoming a hero? Everyone but him knows it's impossible for him to become one. But who gives a DMN? If he wants to continue embarrassing himself, then so be it, he said as he lazily slouched against the wall. The brash, arrogant boy whose explosion quirk made him a shoo-in to become an accepted applicant of UA next year stared hard at Deku, the name he had called him ever since they were little, and he discovered he had won and Izuku didn't, and felt getting in was a cakewalk. But the fact that worthless Deku had said in front of everyone today that he'd joined the school had ticked him off. A smug look appeared on Katsuki's face as an idea to have some fun and make Deku cry as well. Nothing too bad, just enough for some entertainment and give him some laughs. He raised his hand up and timed it, and activating his quirk set off an explosion with a loud bang right in front of Izuku, to startle and scare him out of his shoes. However, so focused on his antics, Katsuki had paid no attention to the surroundings and failed to notice the truck that was passing through. And on it were several barrels with a marking on them. No one could possibly guess what was going to happen next. The driver of the truck was startled and scared witless hearing the explosion at what had just happened, thinking that he was under attack, and veered all over the road trying to get it under control. Izuku looked on, his eyes widening at what he saw as it was coming at him. The driver screamed and turned left, pulling the steering wheel as hard as he could to miss him. The large vehicle turned and missed him just barely. Izuku let loose the breath that he had been holding as crisis had just narrowly been averted, it seemed. However, the truck was only part of the danger. The real threat was that which was on it. The barrels jostled and became loose as they bumped into one another, and the rope which was holding them snapped from the force, and one came undone and a barrel fell over. The barrel tipped over, falling off the truck, and the lid come off of it, spewing its contents of a green liquid substance. Watching from afar, the smug look on Katsuki's face had vanished and turned into shock at what was happening, having not expected the events to unfold the way that they had. Izuku could only look on in horror and opened his mouth to scream before it fell over him. Inko Midoriya's greatest fear that one day, something terrible would happen to her son. It was every mother's deepest concern for tragedy to befall their child. She had seen how distraught he had been as he had been told that he couldn't become a hero, and gently tried to comfort him the only way she could figure, in the hope that he'd come to terms with it. While he still researched heroes obsessively, she was sure it was just a phase and he'd grow out of it soon enough. He'd settle down and find himself something to do with his life. Like become a musician perhaps, or a lawyer. Izuku had not come home from school the usual time. She wasn't surprised. He often wandered around town and went to hangouts just like other teenagers his age did, so she wasn't too concerned. It was then that she got the phone call from the hospital, and the message which shook her being to the entire core and left her numb with fear. "Mrs. Midoriya, you must come to the hospital right away. Your son has been involved in a terrible accident." The day and event that all parents dread for their children had come, one which, despite their best wishes, had happened. The truck had been hauling radioactive waste when it had lost control, and one of the barrels had fallen off from it, and the contents had been spilled out onto Izuku's figure, namely in the area around his eyes. Other barrels had fallen off as well, risking contaminating the area, but heroes who were nearby had heard Izuku's cries and rushed to the scene, blocking off the section to prevent others from being affected and transporting him to a hospital to get him medical attention which he desperately needed. Inko was told that her son was in intensive care, and she had a million questions. How did this happen? What was Izuku doing near such a thing? "Let me see him. Please, you got to let me see him," she shouted, trying to push her way through, but was held back by nurses and staff telling her that if she went to his room, that she'd risk being infected as well. Standing silently there, having followed and went to the hospital as well to see what was happening, was Katsuki. None of his cockiness or arrogance that was usually on his face was there anymore. A stunned, sullen look was now across his face as he recalled everything that had happened only hours ago. He walked over to where Inko was seated on a bench, dapping her eyes with a tissue which was one of many that belonged to a pile next to her that she had used since getting here. "Mrs. Midoriya he said, and his voice was far different than his usual brash tone. "Bakugo," Inko said, recognizing the boy. She hadn't seen him in years, not since he stopped coming over to play with her son, but recognized him. "What are you doing here?" she said, and her features softened. "I'm sure Izuku, when he recovers, would be glad to know that his classmates have come to see him," she said with a smile. "Mrs. Midoriya," he said in a solemn tone, "what happened to Izuku? You see, we was in the same area when I had set off an explosion. It was supposed to be just like a firecracker at a festival, that's all, something small and couldn't dent a piece of cardboard. I didn't see or realize that the truck was coming. If I had, I'd never would've." "What are you saying?" Inko asked, a look of disbelief on her face at what she was hearing. "Are you saying that you caused all this?" Katsuki couldn't say anything in response. He wanted to say 1,000 things about what had happened, but nothing could escape his lips. How could you do such a thing?" Inko shouted in a demanding and accusing tone to the boy, who could not say anything as she stood up. "What made you possibly think of doing such a thing?" she yelled at Katsuki, her voice echoing all over the hospital floor. "Do you not know what you have done to him?" It was an accident." He weakly tried to defend himself. "It was supposed to just be an harmless prank, that's all it was. I didn't mean for dash." Smith. Katsuki's head whipped back, the blonde boy having a red mark on his face now from the stinging slap he had just received from the sobbing mother who had struck him. "Monster! You're a monster!" Inko shouted as staff tended to her, trying to get her to calm down. Lying on the hospital bed, Izuku laid there silently, not moving a muscle. Bandages were taped around his damaged eyes. The green-haired boy laid there, the only sound was that of his breathing. A sniffle escaped him and tears were seen falling out, passing through his bandages. The entire world around him was dark. He couldn't see a thing. Not since what had happened, his vision was gone. He couldn't even see that which was around his face. He could hear, taste, touch and smell, but his eyesight were gone. He was scared and wanted to feel the touch of a human being, just to know that they were there with him. The whole world around him had vanished, it seemed. "The damage is too extensive." He heard the doctor's voice coming from the next room over. Even though it was past a solid wall, he could hear him as if he was right next to him. A tone of regret and sorrow in his voice, and he could hear the sobs and cries of his mother at what had happened to him. "There's nothing we can do to restore his vision, I'm afraid. It's a flat-out miracle that he's even still alive." Izuku felt a large lump in his throat, as if a bowling ball had been shoved down it, and a pain in his chest that wouldn't go away at what he was hearing. "Your son is blind, Miss Midoriya." Lying there on the bed, Izuku could only join his mother in crying at what had happened to him and how his dreams of being a hero were now gone forever. "I'm happy with the support and reviews I've received for this, and am glad for it. I wondered how the reaction to it was going to be, as when I first thought of this story and coming up with ideas for it, I had narrowed it down at the end to Daredevil and Iron Fist before deciding to go with DD, since not many use him. Here Izuku meets All Might, and the next chapter will be where he meets his classmates. Disclaimer: I don't own My Hero Academia." Lying aimlessly on the bed of his home, Izuku Midoriya stared up at the ceiling. Across his face, covering his eyes, were a pair of dark glasses that he now adorned over his damaged eyes. 10 days had passed since the incident, and it had been 6 days since he had returned home from the hospital. What was he going to do now? What could he do? Was his entire life over before it even began? Would he be living the rest of his life with his mom? The thought of putting such a burden on her sickened him. She had already been through so much beforehand. "My baby," Inko had said as she laid next to him on the hospital bed, holding him in her arms, tears streaming down her face. "My poor baby," she whimpered as she cried, and tears went down his own face. Some of his classmates from school had dropped by to pay their sympathies to him. He had the feeling, though, that most only did it so to not feel guilty for having picked on him for not having a quirk, and so they could feel at ease about it. A twitch went up in his head as he realized that someone was approaching nearby. Strangely enough, ever since what had happened, he always seemed to know when a person was coming or if someone else was about to enter the room. "Izuku," Inko said, standing in his doorway. "There's someone here who wants to see you." "Tell them I don't want to see anyone," Izuku said, and turned over in bed, facing away from her. "Izuku, please get up. You can't spend all your time in bed." His mother sternly lectured him. With a sigh he rolled up out of bed and stumbling a bit walked over to the door, keeping his head away from her. Even though he couldn't see her face, he could easily picture the pained look on his mother's face at seeing him like this. Inko looked on at her son, wishing that there was something that she could do, anything to help him. She'd gladly go through what he was going through if it meant he could see again. She was distraught knowing the pain he was in and how she couldn't do anything. And she was also ashamed of herself, of her actions at the hospital when her emotions had gotten the better of her and in the heat of moment had lashed out and struck Bakugo and called him a monster. She regretted it the moment she did so, feeling shame that she would strike a boy her son's age, as her mind had been racing 1,000,000 miles an hour, and hearing that Bakugo had been involved in the incident, something had snapped inside of her and she lashed out. She helped Izuku, leading him to the living room. "Ah," a voice said to them as they entered the living room, as a figure was seen seated on one of the couches in their home. If Izuku could still see, he would see that the man was a gaunt and thin man with blue eyes whose clothes clung to him and seemed too big for his body, as his appearance was odd as he had blonde hair that was tied up. The man couldn't possibly weigh no more than 100 pounds tops. "You must be Izuku, correct?" "Izuku, this is Mr. Toshinori Yagi. He has offered to be a teacher for you," Inko said to him, explaining who he was. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Izuki," Mr. Yagi said in a friendly and hospitable voice, extending his hand towards Izuku's own, which he reached over and shook, and for some reason, his voice sounded similar, as if he had heard it before. "I'm here to offer my services to you. I've got a background and am a licensed instructor to teach those who are with disabilities," the man informed the two. "You want to teach me?" Izuku asked, a confused tone in his voice. "Correct, young man, I am a teacher who has worked with those who..." The man paused, looking for the right word not to offend him. "Are in similar post-ions such as you are. I can teach you Braille and how to get around. Be able to live life as close as it was before what had happened. What do you say?" "No thanks," Izuku replied to him. "Thanks for coming, you can leave now." "Izuku, don't be rude to our guest," Inko scolded him at his display. "I'm sorry, Mr. Yagi, but I'm not offended, ma'am," the man said with a smile. "I know he's going through a hard time right now, and it would not be the first time I was told no at first." "Izuku, listen to me," he said to him. "I'm not trying to make you feel lesser than others because of what's happened. Just because of what's happened does not mean your life is over. Let me help you, at least spend an hour with me before you make a decision." "I don't feel like it," Izuku muttered. "1 hour, 60 minutes, that's all I'm asking, and if you don't like it at the end, I'll leave and never bother you again. Am I asking really all that much from you in exchange?" He asked him, and Izuku knew it was better to humor him. "All right then, but only 1 hour," he said to him. "Excellent. I'm sure 1 hour is more than enough time to convince you," the man said with a smile. "Now, Mrs. Midoriya, would you mind if I take your son outside? I trust you wouldn't mind if I did. We won't be going far." "Well, I suppose it wouldn't hurt. Just be careful. Izuku, don't forget your walking stick." "I know," Izuku replied, as he had a cane that he had to use the times he was going outside. "We'll be back before you know it," Mr. Yagi said as they exited the apartment and left the building. The two walked for a block before Izuku stopped. "Look, I realize that you want to help me, but there's nothing you can really do, Mr. Yagi," he said to him. "What I want more than anything is nothing that you can do." "Oh, are you certain of that?" the man questioned him. "It's not like you can turn me into a hero, what with the way that I am. I'm blind and have no quirk, so that means that hey. What's going on?" Izuku was cut off when he was suddenly effortlessly picked up off the ground, and he felt the air bracing against him as he felt like he was flying. After several harrowing seconds, he felt his feet touch the ground again. "What the? Where the heck am I?" he said, moving around when a hand grabbed him. "Easy, kid. If you start running, you're going to fall off the roof of this place and make yourself a nasty dent on the pavement. We're on the roof of the apartment building of where you live." How on earth did we get up here?" Izuku shouted, his heart pounding against his chest. "Simple, I leapt up," Mr. Yagi's voice said to him. "What?" Izuku said, and he noticed that the man's voice had changed. It was filled with more confidence and it sounded inspiring. But how? Come on now, are you not my biggest fan from what I figured out just by looking at your home? The man said to him in an amused tone. Do you not know all my attacks and catchphrases? Surely you know that everything will be fine now that I am here? Izuku's eyes widened behind the glasses he wore. All might the... He weakly whispered, not believing what he was hearing. It couldn't be him. Yes, it is me, he said, and the thin shriveled-up man had transformed into a giant muscular man with bulging biceps and a chest that could stop a full-speed bus just by slamming into it. The symbol of justice and peace for the world. All Might proclaimed, announcing who he was. This can't be real. Izuku shouted, his eyes watering in shock and awe at the fact that his idol was standing before him. Oh, how he wished he wasn't blind right now so he could see him with his own eyes as he had long dreamed of standing next to him one day. How is this possible? What your mother saw beforehand was merely a form that I have to take. A civilian identity, you could call it. But as of late I'm forced to be in it more and more often. The giant of a man said to him. I don't understand. Izuku said to him. What I'm about to tell you, Izuki, is something only a select few know, and you mustn't tell anyone either. If people found out about this, I'm afraid there would be panic and fear spreading throughout. The truth of the matter is, Izuku, while everyone thinks I'm invincible, sadly I'm not. I've taken a lot of hits and grievous wounds in my lifetime as a hero. I've needed extensive surgery in order to survive one especially nasty blow. The toll it's taken on my body means I can only be in my strong form for about 3 hours a day anymore at the most now. The rest of the time I'm in a shriveled-up form and state. He said to him. This is the price I paid for my deeds and heroics, but don't think for a second that I wouldn't do it all over again if I had the choice. I don't regret any of my actions. Izuku listened into him, not knowing this about his hero. You also seek to become a hero, do you not? All Might said to him, and Izuku looked on at him, a bit surprised that he knew. Many do aspire to become one, and you are no different, are you? Yes, but I don't have a quirk. Izuku said to him in a solemn voice, his head down. I see. All Might responded to him in understanding. I'm quirkless. People tell me over and over that since I don't have one that I can't become a hero. I thought that maybe if I trained and worked hard and used the knowledge that I learned from studying heroes like you, then maybe I could become one. That I'd show it was possible for people without quirks to be ones as well. If I had met you earlier, I would have asked you if I could become a hero in spite of not having one. But now, because of this, he said, and motioned with his right hand to his face. I can't ever become a hero. My idol, who I look up to since I was 4 years old, is standing right in front of me and I can't even see him. Izuku finished in a bitter tone of voice. There are heroes out there without quirks, you know. All Might said, comforting him. They are the ones who arrive first before those like myself do. Risking their lives every day in the face of danger despite having no powers. And some are blind as well, or only able to use the upper half of their body. Have you considered becoming a detective, perhaps? Izuku was about to respond when he suddenly detected something. Do you smell something? Izuku asked him. All Might said, and lifted up his arm and took a whiff of his armpit. I'm smelling gas. Come now, I know I had a chili bean burrito for lunch, but it's surely not kicking in now. All Might protested. No, wait a sec. Izuku said and sniffed again. I can hear something as well. A hissing sound coming down below in the building. He said, looking down at the floors below the roof. All Might looked on at him. Are you certain? Yes, I'm hearing and smelling something. Something foul, it seems like. Izuku said, as he had a feeling that something bad was going on. Down below, right? All Might repeated. I'm going to check there, I'll be right back. He said, and without uttering another word leapt off down the rooftop of the building to the ground below. Izuku was stunned at how carelessly he had done it. A few minutes later, he had leapt back up to the rooftop, his feet slamming against the pavement. Izuku, you was right, All Might confirmed to him. There was something going on in the basement of the building just now. There was a gas leakage. The pipes are old and rusted, and due to it are leaking small puffs of gas. While not much of a threat now, in due time they would become truly dangerous. Fortunately, I was able to bend and twist them back into shape so they would stop and made a call to a repairman to come fix and replace them. You saved the day again, All Might. Izuku said to him, but All Might shook his head. I'm afraid not. If not for you, not even I would have noticed it. You saved their lives, Midoriya, including that of your mother's. All Might proclaimed to him, shocking him that he would say that to him. His hero would say that he was the one who had done it. Izuku, if you hadn't detected that gas leak just now, disaster could have possibly struck in a short while, as people who live here could have been poisoned from inhaling it, or a fire could have broken out. If not for you, who knows what could have happened? I didn't do anything. Izuku protested. That is where you are wrong. It's the little things that people overlook that shows the difference between true heroes. Some wait to act until disaster strikes, but it is better to be there and stop it from happening. That makes the difference between saving and losing lives. Preventing disasters before they even happen is something we must also do. You saved many lives today. Just imagine the damage it could have caused if you hadn't noticed it. Izuku was quite stunned that his hero was praising him. All Might dash. Izuku turned to the right. The hero commanded him. What do you hear? Izuku turned and looked on and focused. I hear cars. People talking on their cell phones to one another. Children playing. And how far do you think they are from you? I don't know, 10 feet I guess. Try multiplying that by 10. Not to mention we're on the top of a tall building as well, and you're hearing them as if they're right next to you. All Might said as he looked on at him. Izuku was silent. All Might, what does this all mean? It means that something happened to you when the incident occurred. Despite the loss of your eyesight, your other 4 senses that you possess, touch, smell, hearing and taste, have apparently been greatly increased beyond the norm of ordinary people. Your hearing has extended to that of several blocks, and you detected the smell of gas through multiple floors even though we are outside. Perhaps it was the radiation that caused it, or maybe you obtained a quirk after all when you lost your sight. But one thing is for certain, you are not helpless like you think you are. You said that you want to become a hero. Well then, do you truly wish to become a hero? All Might asked him. Answer me, Izuku Midoriya, is that what you truly want more than anything else in the world? To become a hero and symbolize what peace and justice means? Yes. Izuku proclaimed to him with all his heart. Then I shall train you. All Might declared to him as he would take him on as his apprentice from this day forward. Izuku smiled for the first time ever since what had happened, as tears started to form behind his glasses as he took them off. After all he had been through, he would in fact be able to become a hero, and his idol would teach him. It was as if his nightmare that he had been living had turned into a beautiful dream. Please don't cry. All Might said to him. All right. Izuku said as he sniffed and dried his tears. In 10 months the applications and testing for UA will be opened as enrollment begins. Right now, even with your enhanced senses, you won't last. So let's see. All Might stopped and began counting on his fingers. 3 months with 30, and February's gonna be a leap year, that leaves 31 for the rest. Only 305 days to get you up to shape and be able to be accepted. He told him as he rounded up the math. Izuku, this is not going to be an easy task. It will be very grueling and hard work, as I'm going to test your limits of how much you can take, and I want you to go beyond past them plus ultra. Once we start we cannot quit, so tell me. Are you ready? Yes, All Might. Izuku declared to him, and All Might smiled in return, as that was what he wanted to hear. The months passed, through Halloween to Christmas and beyond, as Midoriya was put through grueling training regime by All Might, strengthening and hardening his body as he developed, and worked on gaining muscle mass as he did physical tasks, including clearing all the debris off of a beach that had been piled up. He had given his mother a diet that he wanted now, a proper diet of select foods in order to boost his cardio and stamina. He felt bad for lying to her about what was really going on, as she thought All Might in his shriveled up form was just a special needs teacher, but it was for the best right now if she only saw him as that. The last thing was more put on her if she learned that he was training to be a hero. He returned to school after the first week of training, having learned how to read Braille, and resumed his classes. His classmates and teacher were a bit surprised how he was able to transition back so well. So you dropped something just now when you passed by. And it sounds like it's going to rain soon, so you might want to close the window," he said to his teacher as he went over a lesson the board, and the teacher stopped what he was doing and looked. He had heard him drop what sounded like a paper just now. "Oh, you're right, Izuku," the teacher said, and extended his arm and picked a paper up, a bit surprised he had noticed it, as well as the clouds outside were getting darker, showing signs of raining. Katsuki, he had not interacted with him since the incident. And Katsuki, it seemed, was avoiding him. The two had not spoken to one another in that time period. Izuku wondered if he would ever talk to him again. He hadn't even mocked or taunted him anymore like he used to, or even call him Deku. Katsuki looked on over at Izuku, who was seated and jotting down notes and mumbling to himself, acting despite what had happened that the incident never had happened. One would think he hadn't lost his sight with the way he went. He used a walking stick to move, but he seemed to know where he was going now. Watching on, the blonde muttered under his breath as he thought back to what had happened months ago. Izuku began realizing just what his enhanced senses were capable of doing now. By focusing, he could hear a person several blocks away talking, and also found out he could hear their heartbeat as well. He also discovered that if he pressed his hand against the ink of a page, he could read the words on it as if they were before him, enabling him to rediscover the joy of reading books once more. A classmate at lunch went to play a cruel joke by secretly placing hot sauce on his sandwich while another distracted him, but he detected the smell of it, realizing what was going on, and waiting until others had entered the room providing a distraction, switched it with his classmate, and so he enjoyed a tuna sandwich while the other had to rush for the nearest water fountain to douse the flames in his mouth. Another of his abilities that he detected was a type of radar he now seemed to possess. He could tell where things were at in his surroundings. While he couldn't see them, he could make out their shapes and know where they were so he wouldn't be able to bump into them by accident. He was able to help his mother out around the house with household chores. All might put him through the ringer with his workout, but the mighty hero always knew when to stop for the day when he could tell that he couldn't go on even though he wanted to. If your body breaks down and you can't continue for a time, then all the stuff we did earlier would have gone to waste, he said to Izuku, explaining to him one day when he had said he was fine and protested about wanting to continue although he was knee-deep in sweat and barely able to stand. All Might also enrolled him in a hand-to-hand martial arts program at a school which was funded by and owned by him that was used by the police. He had Izuku learning to fight in hand-to-hand combat, including Aikido, Jiu-Jitsu, and other forms of combat, and had taken up fighting with his walking stick, learning to use it like a baton. As winter turned into spring and then to summer, Izuku's body had become strong as he had bulked up, having put on many pounds of muscle. He was no longer the skinny boy who could be picked on. He was athletic and able to do flips and cartwheels as he learned acrobatic maneuvers. "Holy stinking super crap!" All Might exclaimed at the top of his lungs. 3 weeks before you was supposed to start as he looked on at the scene before him. The beach, which before had once been littered with debris from old appliances to run-down bikes and other sorts of trash, was now clear and filled with nothing but white sand and clear water. He was impressed beyond even his expectations. "How did I do?" a voice said, and he looked up and saw that Izuku was standing on top of a rock on the beach looking on at him. "You did good, kid," All Might said, and flashed him a thumbs up in approval. "When I first put you up to this, I thought at best it'd be a day or two when you finished. But you did it with time to spare," he said to Izuku, who smiled at him. "Now get down here." Izuku nodded and leapt down, performing a flip, and landed on the sand before him. "Now then, it's time for your final lesson at hand," All Might said, and reaching up plucked a hair out of his head. "Take this, Midoriya," he said, handing him the strand of hair. "What do I do with it? Swallow it?" Izuku asked skeptically as he held it in his hands. "Correct," All Might said to him, and a look of confusion appeared on his face. "To obtain one for all, you must consume the DNA of the previous user. That is the only way one can do so and inherit it. Upon doing so, you shall gain my quirk." He instructed him on what he must do. "All Might, do you think I'm worthy of having your quirk?" Izuku asked him. This was what all the training had come down to. From learning to live with being blind, to training and working his butt off this whole time and learning to defend himself, having been taught hand-to-hand combat, to using his other senses. One for all has been passed down from hero to hero. You shall be the 9th generation to have hold it. All Might stated to him. The purpose of these past 10 months has been not only to get your body into shape and develop muscle, but also so that you shall be able to handle it. If I gave you to you beforehand and you tried to use it, your body would likely explode. Now, I'm certain that you'll be able to withstand its power. But do not solely rely on it. Your other senses and skills you've developed have made you into the capable person you are today. I want you to rely on them just as much as it, if not even more so than One for All, as they can be just as powerful if you use them wisely. All Might, if I obtain One for All, will it restore my vision upon doing so? Izuku asked him as he held the strand of hair. All Might was silent, his arms crossed over his massive chest. I am unsure, but I sincerely doubt it. I don't want to raise you up with false hopes, Midoriya. I doubt that if you obtain it that it will heal your eyes. A previous wielder before me, I was told, only had one leg and he did not sprout a new one upon being granted it, as he fought with a prosthetic leg his whole career. Maybe your eyes will heal, maybe it won't. He informed him as Izuku held the strand of hair in his hands. Taking a deep breath, he opened his mouth and plopped All Might's hair into it. He gagged at the taste of human hair but forced himself to swallow it as it went down his throat. Ha! Well, better down and in than up and out, I always say. All Might said with a laugh at the display as Izuku coughed and cleared his throat. Izuku suddenly began to feel different, his body. It felt stronger, as if bursting with energy that he couldn't begin to explain. Waiting to come out. I feel different. He said as if felt a glowing warmth inside of him just now. That is the power that is growing inside your body now. You are now the next chosen bearer of One for All. The powers that which I had are now yours also. All Might confirmed to him, and he felt a light on him and looked on at the rising sun over the beach horizon. Take it in, young one. This is who are you now. All Might said, stretching his arms out, feeling the sun's embrace. Feel the illumination of the great ball of fire down upon you and the view of the crystal water beach that which you yourself have created. Do you not see the beauty of which it possesses? He asked him. Izuku, tell me, do you see it? I can't, I'm blind, remember? Oh, right. All Might said as the wind had been taken out of his sails at being reminded. Now then, Midoriya, you need to tell your mother that you are applying for UA. Yet wait, what? Izuku asked, turning to look at him. Just bring it up during tea time or something. Perhaps once she's had a glass of wine or two. All Might suggested to him. But I thought you was going to. Izuku protested, and All Might shook his head. Supervillains I can handle, but mothers are something else, and a foe I find that not even I can defeat. You're going to have to tell her about this. Once you do that, I'll start giving you some pointers on how to use One for All without risking tearing your body to pieces. Ciao. He said and departed, leaving him there pondering how he was going to tell his mom about all this. The next morning, Inko got ready to get up and make breakfast when she came to the kitchen and saw to her surprise a meal of pancakes, scrambled eggs, bacon and hash browns with a glass of orange juice laid out and prepared for her. What is this? She said in shock at what she was seeing. Good morning, Mom. Izuku said to her as he revealed himself to her, having gotten up early to cook and make breakfast for her. I thought you'd like it if I cooked for you for a change. You did all this? She asked him, and he smiled at her. Yes, so go ahead and dig in, Mom. He told her. His mother smiled before picking up a utensil and began to eat. While he had relearned how to cook, never had he made a gourmet meal like this before. Inko ate breakfast, which was delicious, as she ate in appreciative silence. Izuku looked on at his mother, watching her eat, waiting for the right moment to spring the news on her. That was delicious, Izuku. Inko said with a beaming smile. Thank you for a wonderful meal. She told him as she was drinking the rest of her juice. Izuku took a deep breath as it was all or nothing. Mom, he said to her. There's a reason why I did this. Mom, I want to enroll in UA. He told her. Inko's eyes widened at what she heard. What did you just say? She asked, putting the cup down, nearly dropping and spilling it. I want to enroll in the hero school. Inko looked on, shock before scowling. Izuku, I thought we've put this hero business behind us. She lectured him sternly. But, Mom dash. Enough, Izuku, she said to him, raising her voice, letting her disappointment known. You know that you can't with your condition. There's a big difference between cooking me breakfast and what you are saying. What can't you just try to have a normal life instead? There are people with quirks after all like me who don't try to become heroes. Izuku gritted his teeth. But Mom, I can do this. You know that I can. All Might himself said that I could. All Might? When did you ever meet Dash? He's Mr. Yagi, Mom. These past 10 months, I'm sorry I've been hiding it from you, but he's been training me. I knew that if you found out you'd order me to stop. All this time I've been working with him. It's because of him I'm able to lead a functional life now. Izuku, you can't, you are Dash. I'm not helpless, Mom. Izuku exclaimed, raising his voice to her, surprising Inko that he did. I'm blind, yes, but that doesn't mean I can't do anything anymore. I know, ever since I lost my eyes, that you think that I am and that you need to hold my hand all the time like I'm a newborn kitten, but I'm not. I can take care of myself. I can get anywhere now and know where I'm going. Mom, please. He begged her. Let me do this. I need to do this. Ever since I was 4, when I was first told I couldn't be a hero, the desire to be one has only grown stronger inside me. Izuku said to her. When I lost my eyesight, I was about to give up, but now I've found out that I can still become a hero and save people. This is a second chance for me. I've learned how to defend and take care of myself as I've learned self-defense, and I won't ever use it to hurt others. You know that I can walk from here to school and back without any assistance now and go anywhere in town. If you prohibit me from doing so, I might as well go dig a hole outside for a grave because I'd be dead inside. Mom, you don't have to worry about me. He said to her, pleading with her to let him do this. Mom, please, you've got to let me at least try out. Inko was silent for a long moment, not saying anything to her son as she listened to what he said to her just now. The day that I stop worrying about you is the day I no longer can call myself your mother. Inko replied to him, her voice soft. I will always worry about you so long as I live. But I know for how long you've been dreaming of being a hero and how much it means to you, and if I don't allow you the chance, I'm basically robbing you of all your hopes and dreams, and that's the worst thing that a mother could ever do and something I can't ever do again. Mom, Izuku said to her. When you was 4 years old and spent all day on the computer watching videos after being told you couldn't become a hero, you asked me if you could become one after all. Inko said as she remembered that day and the broken-hearted look on his face, with tears streaming down his face as he asked her. Instead of supporting you, I just did what everyone else did and told you that you couldn't. I should have said yes. I should have said yes 1,000 times that you could. It's not your fault, Mom. Izuku said as both had been broken-hearted at what had happened that day. I never ever meant to hurt you, she said as tears had formed in her eyes as she wrapped her arms around him in a hug and he hugged her back. And I apologize for doing so. Any parent's greatest wish is to see their child achieve and succeed in their dreams. But please promise me this: when you go to enroll at UA, you won't do anything reckless. I promise, Mom, Izuku said to her, a tear falling down his cheek. I'm going to make you proud. Inko smiled at her son. I already am proud of you. Nearly a month later, Izuku Midoriya found himself standing in front of UA, preparing to take the first step on his path towards becoming a hero he always dreamed of becoming. Next chapter of The Devil of UA. Izuku takes the enrollment test for it and meets his future classmates. Also, a hint of an enemy is revealed. Disclaimer: I don't own My Hero Academia. Izuku stood before the gates to UA. Just beyond this was entry into the famous school for hopeful heroes in the entire world. His entire dream was right in front of him now, but the blind boy did not step forward despite others doing so and not paying any attention to him standing there. Despite wanting to step forward and go in, his feet felt like they were glued in quick-drying cement. He stood there on the spot looking ahead as this was everything he had been working for. The chance to enroll in UA and start training to become a hero. But what if they don't accept me because I'm blind? What if I don't even get a chance to try out? He thought to himself as sweat poured down his brow, making a puddle, thinking of them automatically turning him down once they saw him. All my work this past year will have been for nothing, nothing. He thought as disheartenment filled him all over. Are you nervous? A voice suddenly said, startling him. You've been standing there like a statue for the past 5 minutes. The voice, which was a female, said to him. Huh, he said, turning his head. Sorry, I didn't mean to startle you, but I was wondering if you was okay. The female said to him. Oh, sorry, just first-time jitters, that's all. He said as he rubbed his head. A girl with long dark green hair that she had tied in a bow at the bottom looked on at the odd boy as she had arrived and noticed him. My name's Tsu Ajui, but you can call me Tsu, Ribbit. Are you here to take part? He asked her. Yes, I've enrolled in the hero course and I guess you have as well. What's your quirk? Tsu asked him, putting her finger to her chin, wondering why he was wearing dark glasses like that. My quirk? My quirk is enhanced senses. Izuku said. It wasn't exactly a lie, he did have those in his other 4 senses. He felt it was too early to tell people he had one for all, considering he was still working on it. Every time he used it so far, he was lucky if his arm hadn't been blown off. All Might had told him it would take time and training before he could fully use it without risking injury to himself. At best he was at 2% right now after 3 weeks of training and could only use it in brief spurts. Good thing All Might knew a healer who could fix him up in less than an hour, even if her methods were unorthodox. Whoa, that's cool. A voice said, and they turned their attention as a boy was heard approaching. So you can hear whatever's around you or something like that? Who are you? Izuku asked him, and the boy had wild red hair and a confident look on his face as he stepped forward. Eijiro Kirishima, the manliest student here. He proclaimed, sticking a thumb into his chest. Nice shades, by the way. He said to Izuku, unaware of what they really were for. Izuku Midoriya, and this person I just met is Tsuyu Ajui. I told you to call me Tsu. She reminded him. Heh, well I guess I'll see you around, maybe we'll be paired up together in how they test us. Kirishima stated before walking off. Well, shall we go in now? Tsuyu asked him. Yeah, sure. He said to her. So what do you think will be the test? Tsuyu asked him as they went up the steps. I wonder if it's just one part or if there will be multiple parts to it. I don't know, it could be anything. Izuku responded, as All Might hadn't told him about what he'd be going through. Well, personally I am hoping it's multi, that way if I do bad one I can make up for it on the others. Makes sense to me. He said as he walked and talked with her. Someone suddenly brushed right by him. Watch it, Deku. The person said, and Izuku recognized that voice instantly. Katsuki. He said as he heard him walk off. He shouldn't have been surprised though. Katsuki had long made it known he was going to attend UA. Greetings applicants, welcome today's hopefuls and tomorrow's heroes. Allow me to introduce myself. A man with flashy clothing and hairstyle said, his voice echoing all around. If you heard my voice before, then I'm sure that you know me automatically. I am the one and only, oft imitated but never duplicated, present Mike. He exclaimed, introducing himself. For being here today, you are all wishing to become the next top hero in the world. However, only a few of you shall be allowed to pass and be able to attend UA. I know you don't want to wait, and neither do I, so let's go over the rules. They were told of and informed of the rules and process. There was robots that was unleashed inside a makeshift city. Their assignment was to find and destroy them. There was different types that had different point values, some worth more than others. They would be judged and based on how they defeated them. If they gained enough points from it and the writing test after this, they would pass and be accepted into UA. Heh, smash some bots, is that it? Katsuki said with an arrogant smirk. All you background and fodder characters might as well just head home right now. I'll crush them all by myself. Hey, who you calling, a background character? Eijiro shouted angrily, stepping forward. Get the hell out of my face, tomato hair. Katsuki snapped at him. A boy with glasses stepped forward. Need I remind you that we are supposed to be fighting the robots? Not one another. He said, an annoyed tone of voice. Buzz off, 4 eyes. Katsuki said in annoyance. How rude, it would be wise to get to know the names of others. You might need their help someday. The short-haired boy said. The day I need help from the likes of you is when pigs fly. Oink. A applicant with the head of a boar said in confusion, thinking they were talking about him. Katsuki's making friends his usual way. Izuku said, shaking his head at hearing at the display. Now then, boys to the left and girls to the right. Follow to the changing room where you'll be wearing the outfits assigned for it. Once you've all changed, you'll be lead to the testing room. Present Mike said. But first, where are my manners? A word from Principal Nizu. Let's all give him a big hand. The entire gathered group looked on expecting to see him enter, each having their own visual in their mind of what he looked like. To all their surprise, a small rodent-like man wearing a suit appeared and approached the stage. Thank you, the mouse man spoke up. To all hopefuls, remember the reason why you chose to become a hero and always think of it every day. Only a few of you, I'm afraid, will be able to succeed and pass today, but a true hero is one who never gives up no matter the overwhelming odds he or she faces. Therefore, I ask that you only give it your all today and every day. He said, raising his hands up, and the room cheered. After changing into a blue jumpsuit outfit, the hopefuls were herded and taken to a large room where the practical test would be held. Whoa, they built an entire city in here. How'd they do that? A girl who had her shirt curled upwards and sleeves rolled so to expose her stomach and arms said, looking on. On your mark, get set. Present Mike shouted as the test then began. At that, all hopeful applicants started as they charged into the makeshift city. Izuku ran, keeping back in the distance as he didn't want to get caught up in the rush. He jogged at an even pace as he made his way. His radar sense was nearly overflowing and going haywire with how many people and stuff was here. He continued on, going past a corner when suddenly a robot lunged out at him. Only his advanced hearing saved him as he ducked under the attack as it rolled about on a pair of wheels attacked to its legs. The bot, which was worth 1 point, revved up its engine and charged at Izuku, who got out of the way again. Not to be deterred, it U-turned and came at him again. Now! He mentally shouted and did a flip over it. The robot smashed into a wall, stunning it, and Izuku took that happening to strike the leg and damage it and knock off the wheel. The bot staggered, trying to balance on one leg when Izuku destroyed the other leg, making it fall down and deactivate. Listening closely, he had heard the joints and gears in the bot, knowing where to strike and damage it. The past near year had proved invaluable for him in learning how to fight and strike an opponent. That's one, he said before going off as he could hear the sounds of fighting. Principal Nizu sipped a cup of tea as he watched on from afar as the scene looked like the 4th of July was happening, what with all the explosions and fighting that was going on. He was in a room filled with several TV screens giving him full access to every inch of the arena. The machines were designed only to wound, not kill. They had sensors installed in them that recognized that if a student was too injured to continue fighting, to leave them alone, a result of numerous lawsuits in the past when some had went overboard in attacking. Ah yeah! Ijiro shouted as he used his quirk of hardening to withstand the attacks as his skin broke the pincer of a crab like one-pointer. This is almost too easy, he said, and got ready to punch and shatter it when it exploded to his surprise. Hey, those mine, he shouted in anger as he saw Katsuki having destroyed it, who arrogantly smirked at him. It's survival of the fittest, don't you know? And you're looking at them, he boasted as he then destroyed a wasp robot. The red-haired boy fumed as no way was he going to be outdone by him. A yawning sound was heard as two heroes were seen looking on at the battle that was going on. The other was Present Mike, whilst the other, who had yawned, seemed unimpressed with the whole thing. Pretty good haul of recruits this year, Shoyuda? Present Mike asked the baggy-haired instructor, who constantly looked ready to doze off. I've seen better, he muttered as he saw a pink-skinned girl use acid to melt the arms off of one while a boy shoot out a laser from his belly to destroy the head of another. Once again, the standards are the same though. Whoever breaks the most stuff is best suited for being a hero, he said with a shake of his head. Well, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, they say, you know? Hayazi said to him, and Izawa shook his head, not pleased. I've been trying for years to get them to change how they do the testing, but the public is more concerned with how explosive and flashy you can be. Shoyuda muttered to himself. Those with quirks like the loud one known as Katsuki were shoe-ins to pass. Others with less offensive-minded quirks, like a boy he saw with purple hair earlier before the day started who had been looking on with envy at the others, were at a disadvantage. Endeavor's son is doing quite well. Present Mike said, and they saw a boy with white and red hair with a burn mark on his face freeze the legs of two at once, causing them to topple over and crash. But it appears that he's only using half of his power. Why isn't he using his father's powers also? From what I hear, he has refused to use his old man's power, relying solely on that of his mother's instead to spite him after the upbringing he's had under him. Aizawa said in a lazy tone, as he knew everything about Shoto Todoroki, the son of the infamous second-ranked hero. Izuku used his martial arts training to dispose of bots, racking up points. His strengthed body able to knock them down, no good though, he said as nearby a boy electrocuted himself to destroy 3 at once. These bots I've taken out are only 1-pointers. It feels like I need to knock off a 3-pointer if I want to have a chance soon, he said, and leaping up scaled a wall, perching on it, and his nose detected the scent of ink. There, he said, and turned left, having detected a fight. A bot that was like an octopus squirted out an ink-like substance all around itself from its nose, spraying those that got too close to make them slip up and batting them with its appendages. A boy fired tape from his arms at one to hold it, but the bot was too strong and it tossed him aside. It then lifted its head up and began spinning all of its appendages around. Anyone who tried to get close to attack would pay dearly. Izuku waited from the rooftop as others had backed away, as he waited until it stopped and jumped down and laid on a tentacle. Nice day? He asked casually, and the bot lifted up a tentacle to swat him, only for him to roll out of the way and it destroyed its own arm. Too bad, he said, getting on another one, and got off in the nick of time again, leaving it only with 6. You're faster than that, aren't you? He taunted it, angering the bot, unaware that it was doing what it wanted him to do. It prepared to fire at him when Izuku kicked it square in its nose, turning it upward and making it dose itself in its own ink, blinding its eyes, unable to see as it fumbled backwards. Now the finisher, he shouted, charging at it towards the edge of the roof. He leapt up and delivered a leaping kick, staggering it, and it fell backwards before exploding. Not bad, he heard a voice and recognized it as the one from earlier in the day. Name's Ida Tenya. The navy-haired teenager said. I noticed you standing in front of the gates and wondered if you had fainted standing up. He said to Izuku. Now I see you are capable, although I haven't seen your quirk fully yet, but do not believe you shall be the top one here, he said before he speed off, using his thruster on his legs to go. Tsuyu leapt around, sticking to the walls of cities, staying up high to catch her breath. Thanks to her quirk, Frog, she could get to places like this without any trouble. I wonder how Izuku's doing, she thought to herself. Oh well, no matter, I need to focus on myself for now, she said, and spotted a girl with brown hair whose quirk enabled her to levitate objects and had a group of 2-pointers immobilized and crashed them to the ground. Tsuyu spotted one flyer about to strike the girl from behind when she leapt and dive-bombed onto it and crashed it to the floor. The girl turned and saw that Tsuyu had helped her. Thanks for the help, the brown-haired girl said, and Tsuyu saluted her in response before leaping off. She saw a grasshopper 2-point bot on top of a roof and landed before it. The bug robot's eyes lit on before hopping at her, which she dodged. I don't think you can match me when it comes to leaping, Ribbit, Tsuyu said, and as if taking that as a challenge, the 2-point bot leapt up high, thinking to crush her, and Tsuyu dodged, leaping aside in time. It clicked its sharp machine-made mandibles together and lunged again, looking to skewer her. She lashed out with her tongue, and it extended several feet and wrapped and entangled the bot's legs. The grasshopper attempted to leap up, but her tongue held it in place, making it jump a short distance before falling and topple over. It then lifted its head up and saw Tsuyu leaping down at it in a diving kick, which knocked its head clean off. Nodding, she went off to find some more. Many of the point bots had been picked off as the 2 senior heroes looked on. The standouts and those who will qualify are starting to break away from the pack. Present Mike noted as they saw 2 girls, one who could create things from her body and another who was using sonic attacks, working together on a group. A boy with the head of a bird lured and baited one towards him onto to emit a dark shadow from his chest and destroy it, as another with super strength smashed 2 together. A 3-point bot shaped like a turtle was shown getting hit with a barrage of attacks, but its thick shell provided it much protection. The 3-point bot hid directly inside its shell, and none of the attacks seemed to be able to hurt it or get past its titanium shell. Forget I can't waste the last of my powers on it. A blond boy from before said, clutching his stomach in pain, and ran off. Sensing that no one else was nearby, the turtle bot cautiously poked out its vulnerable head. A spit of toxic liquid shot out and hit its face, and it let out a robotic of pain. Your shell if impenetrable but not your face, Tsuyu said, having waited for her chance to attack, and spat out another toxic shot. The face was being damaged as it was partly melted from the liquid burning its face and burrowed its head back into its shell. It then with deceiving agility charged forward at Tsuyu, who wasn't expecting it to be so fast, and was knocked into the air. Tsuyu cried out in pain as her leg injured as she fell on it wrong when she landed. She hissed through her mouth as she tried to stand and pull herself up, but to no avail as she couldn't support it. The turtle bot prepared to attack again as it got ready to charge. Tsuyu took a deep breath, bracing for impact, when to her surprise she was picked up out of the air as the turtle smashed into a building. She opened her eyes and saw that Izuku had a hold of her, having got her before she was hit. Good thing I was nearby, and heard what was going on? He asked her, running a short distance before setting her down. Tsuyu, can you walk? Izuku asked her, offering a hand to her. Come on, we can't stay here, he said, and she took it and he pulled her up. Here, let's find someplace for you to rest, he said, having Tsuyu lean on him for support as they walked. You know I told you to call me Tsu, right? Not much longer, Present Mike said, taking a sip of Java as he and Aizawa looked on. But I need a nap, Aizawa said, stiffing a yawn as he wanted this to end already. They heard a crashing sound just now, and watching on saw a boy with the hairdo of grapes was sent flying through the air before smashing into and through a wall, having foolishly challenged one of the 0-pointers, thinking to show off. Ouch, clean up on aisle 4. Aizawa dryly said as that boy was done, as no way was he continuing the test after that kind of blow. Looks like the final boss has arrived, he mentioned, as this one was over twice the size of the others and made of far stronger and denser metal than others were. Its footsteps echoed and thundered across the ground. Heh, it's about time a DMN challenge actually showed up, Katsuki said as he saw it, and focusing his power fired an explosion at it. When the smoke cleared, the bot stood there unscathed. The hell? Katsuki exclaimed in shock, and the bot rose up its clawed hand and lashed at him, forcing him to move out of the way. Now we'll see if they knew when it's best to cut their losses and run when facing a foe they can't beat, Aizawa said, looking on as things were finally getting interesting. The giant robot had a small hole in his stomach compartment which suddenly began to glow as it emitted and gathered up energy. It then unleashed a laser that shot around the area, forcing all in its path to scatter. That one's too heavy for my Quirk to use, Ochako, the girl who used levitation earlier, said as her powers would be useless on it. I can only stay out of the way. Same here, what appeared to just be an outfit said. I don't think being invisible will be enough, the floating pile of clothes said, which freaked Ochako out. 5 minutes. Only 5 minutes left, Present Mike announced. Izuku helped Tsuyu sit down and propped and checked her leg for damage. Can you walk now, Tsuyu? He asked the girl, who grunted in confirmation. A little rib bit, it's just a minor sprain, that's all it feels like. I'll be fine in a couple of minutes once I can put some weight on it, she said to him, and Izuku nodded to her. Stay here out of the way until you can, he told her. Wait, what are you going to do? She asked him. I can hear that others need help as well, he said to her before running off. Be careful, Izuku, Tsuyu called out to him. Choosing to save a fellow student even though he thinks it wouldn't benefit him, but does so anyway, Principal Nizu muttered to himself, crossing his arms over his chest. A hero always looks out to ensure that others are fine first, he said, allowing a smile to form, but another scene caught his attention. That 0-pointer's going to be a hassle, he mused. The 0-pointer was nigh unstoppable, as it was not meant to be defeated but only to be avoided, as it smashed through buildings with its claws and fired its laser. Anything in its vicinity was in danger, as it showed no discrete ion in what it attacked. Hey, come on. Someone help us. This thing's gone crazy, a boy shouted as they huddled together for protection beneath a building from it, but the bot gripped it and tore it in two, making them scream. In his viewing area, Principal Nizu got ready to press a button that would automatically shut it down but stopped, his eyes widening slightly at what he saw. "Hey! Over here, you pile of used cars!" A voice shouted at the zero-pointer, trying to get its attention. "Come get me, you Gundam reject!" He yelled, and as if taking offense to his taunts, the bot slowly turned around and seeing Izuku focusing its attention on him, who then began running. The bot slowly stomped after him, thus giving the others room and time to escape as Ochako used her quirk to levitate pieces out of the way for them. The zero-pointer looked on at Izuku, the single glowing red eye it possessed glaring down at him. A humming sound began to emit from it as it was going to prepare its attack. From what I've been hearing from before, when it attacks it takes an estimated 15 seconds or so for it to fully charge up and fire from the hole in its stomach. That means I gotta attack while I have the chance. Izuku thought to himself. But I don't think I'm fast enough to get in range and attack before it can. Even if I did, I couldn't do any damage. My only real choice is to use one for all, he said, and clutched a hand into a fist, preparing to use it even though he knew the risks. "I just hope that it doesn't kill." "Wait, what's that?" he said as his foot brushed up at something. He reached down and picked up a medium-sized rock, holding it and guessing the weight and full size of it. "This might work," he said to himself as he held it in his arms. He could hear it charging up and knew he only had one shot as he hoisted it and ran at the zero-pointer, which was almost done and fully charged up. "This isn't going to end well," Aizawa said as he got ready to make a move, as that kid was going to be nothing more than a stain on the ground after this. He didn't know what the hell he was thinking, but it was suicidal, whatever it was. A hand suddenly gripped his shoulder and he looked and was surprised to see All Might standing there holding him in place. "Wait, let's see what happens," he told them, looking on as he wanted to see what Izuku would do. "He has a plan." Izuku charged at the giant bot and, hoisting what he had overhead, tossed the rock right at the hole in the center. The rock hit it and got lodged in there, right in the center of the hole where its laser would be exiting from. The bot prepared to fire its laser and Izuku covered his arms up to brace himself from the oncoming impact. But there was no blast. The rock had clogged up the hole, preventing it from firing. Despite its attempts to fire, it couldn't do so. It could only gather more and more energy right in its center that was piling up. With no way to let loose the gathering energy that was inside it, the bot can only unleash it upon itself, and it blew up, being torn apart from the inside as the laser shot around. The bot was engulfed in explosion and flames, and once the smoke was gone, it was shown dissected with its inner body revealed as the armor had been blown clean off. Despite it all though, it was still functioning despite the heavy damage it had taken. "Arg!" Izuku shouted as he leapt up, and his glasses were shown having fallen off. His fist was glowing as he shot off like a rocket right at the robot and slammed his fist into it, piercing right through its single eye. The bot fell over, having been split in two from the force of the attack like a tree in the woods, before shattering on the ground. "Whoa. I know the rules state that that's supposed to just be a zero-pointer, but I think we can give him 30 points for that." Present Mike exclaimed at what he had seen, as no one before had even managed to put a dent in it, but this kid had caused it to blow itself up and then smashed it. All Might had a confident smile on his face while Aizawa let out a harumph, seemingly not impressed. Plus an extra 15 or so for aiding the girl from before, as well as 10 more apiece for giving the others time to escape. All Might said, looking on as most of the tryouts were stunned at what they had just seen him do, Bakugo most of all. Izuku was shown on the ground trying to recover from using one for all. Shaking his head to clear it, he fumbled around. "My glasses? Where are they?" he said as he was on all fours trying to find them, as they had fallen off and he didn't know where. "Here," a voice said, and placed them in his hand. "They get knocked off over to the side from it," Tsuyu said as she had found and recovered them. "I'm afraid that there's cracks in them though," she said to him. "It's okay. I can have them repaired." She then looked at his eyes, and her own widened in surprise when she saw that they were milked over, as she realized that he was blind. "Are you okay? Your eyes." "It's all right, I've gotten used to it," he said as he put them back on and stood up as he tended to his arm that he had punched with. From the way it felt, it seemed like he had broken a couple of knuckles as well as fractured his wrist. It would take a couple days for that to heal, but that was the least damage he had received from using one for all so far. A buzzer suddenly went off, catching his and everyone else's attention. And that's the time. Present Mick's voice was heard speaking out as the remaining bots shut down automatically. The battle test is over. After an hour rest PRD for lunch we shall take the written test, he said as the top 10 results were shown on a screen. Whoa, dude, that was awesome. A familiar voice exclaimed to Izuku. You gotta show me that move sometime. Kirishima said to him, having witnessed it. It was nothing, Izuku said in response as he adjusted his glasses. Oh come on, no need to be bashful, you whopped that tin can's butt. The red-headed boy said as a group of people had gathered around, having witnessed it. Many were talking and congratulating him on what he did, with some wondering why he wasn't using that attack earlier. It was quite a spectacle. Another voice said but he was admonishing him. But it was risky and the chance was too great, it couldn't have worked. Ida said to him. If you had been off by even a fraction, you would have been killed by it. He said to Izuku. Plus, because it was a 0-pointer, it was all for nothing what you did. It wasn't really worth it, as you should have kept running instead. Hey, don't be a buzzkill, Kirishima said to him. Izuku, you're a-okay in my book, he said and slapped him hard on the back. Izuku did not expect as he stumbled forward and the cracked glasses he had fell off to the ground and shattered on contact, revealing his eyes to them all. Hey, what's up with your eyes? One shouted at him in shock. Did they get damaged just now? Have you been blind this whole time? Why didn't you tell anyone? The questions came a million miles an hour to Izuku, who found himself unable to answer as they were going overboard, as he brought his hands up to his ears to try and drown them out. Looking on, Katsuki was the only one who wasn't saying anything as he watched. If I had known, I would have helped you out earlier. Yeah, we don't need someone here with a handicap foolishly risking themselves. Stop it, he said to them in anger, shocking them at his loud outburst. All of you stop. Just stop. He yelled over them to make them be quiet. Taking a deep breath, he then spoke up. I'm blind. Yes, join the rest of the world who knows it. But that does not mean that I'm helpless. I don't need to be treated special just because I can't see. You're insulting me and yourself by acting and believing that I can't do anything, he said, as he didn't want to be pitted and thought of as weak because of his handicap that he had. Do you not realize that you are only making things worse by doing so? I don't want or need to be pitted by anyone because of what's happened to me, he said, and he felt Katsuki's presence nearby but didn't turn his gaze to him. What's happened happened. All I want to do now is show that anyone can become a hero. And if any of you have an ounce of respect, you'd treat me no different than you'd treat the person standing next to you, he said to them. I told you earlier that he was something special, All Might said, looking on at Izuku. He's embraced his handicap, having learned to live with it and not let it hold him down or let others use it against him to make him think he's weak. An impressive performance all around this year, Principal Nizu said as he finished his tea. I'll have to watch him destroy that 0-pointer maybe 1 or perhaps 10 more times, he said with a chuckle. Come on now, look at these boys, you aren't going to find stuff like this anywhere else. The man who had brown skin and was bald said as he held open a large briefcase, and in it were many semi-automatic handheld firearms. Later that night, in the alleys where the wretch and dregs dwelled at, an illegal deal was being made. A black man was shown in front of 4 thugs trying to broker a deal. What do we need guns for? Only losers have those anymore. We have quirks and powers, one said to him, not impressed. Yeah, great for letting yourself be known, the black man said dryly, and that made the group upset over how he was mocking them. These bad babies are custom-made and state-of-the-line, imported directly from America. You can carry them on your person as easily as you would a wallet. And they are all equipped with silencers, meaning you can shoot 100 people without anyone knowing what's happened. Come on now, Turk Barrett only provides the best to his customers, he said to them. Fine, the boss of the group said. There's some places we're planning on hitting up later tonight and they could be useful. Good to hear, my new friends. I trust this is the start of a new friendship. I take cash up front only, Turk said with a smug smile. And I'll take all 5 of you knocked out and your mouths shut. Another voice said, surprising them. What the? The boss said, and saw perched on a lamp post a figure wearing goggles. Who are you? He shouted at him, who smirked. It doesn't matter, have some acid, huh? He said, as for some reason his quirk wasn't working. The hero then lunged down and knocked him down to the floor, his feet slamming against his chest, knocking the wind out of him. Sheet! Turk shouted and ran off with his briefcase, dropping a pair of guns from it. The hero ignored him and leapt into action as the thugs found their powers to not be working as the goggles-wearing man attacked and moved with blinding speed, attacking them. With their powers unable to work, one tried to grab a gun and fired at him. The fast-as-lightning hero dodged the bullets as they hit a lamppost, shattering a bulb, and avoided the wild and poorly aimed shots before closing the distance and dropping him with a punch to the jaw. One tried to reach the other gun on the floor, but a foot stomped hard on his fingers, breaking them. It's not nice to play with guns, you know? The hero said, shaking his head. He then kicked them inside of the head, knocking him out as well. Looking on at them with disdain, the person who assaulted them knew he wasn't done yet as he darted after the last one, heading to the rooftops. Crap, 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 Turk Barrett said as the cowardly arms dealer fled the scene, having escaped. How the hell was I supposed to know that heroes are on every stinkin' street here of this stupid city? He said as he ran, sweat pouring down his forehead. He continued to run when a figure dropped down in front of him. He stopped and skidded, only to be tripped up by the man, and he dropped to the floor, hitting the concrete, scraping and bloodying his nose. He was grabbed by the back of the collar, forcing him up off the ground. Isn't it a bit late to be out for an evening run? The goggles-wearing man said to him. And don't you know that selling guns in Japan without proper license is a serious crime? What the hell are dash, he said before he was punched across the face and was knocked out. The briefcase he was carrying hit the ground and spilled open, and several bills flew out of it. The hero looked on with contempt at the man and reached up to his face. The goggles-wearing man lifted them off, revealing his glowing red eyes, which returned back to normal as he leaned down, checking the briefcase for everything that was in there, and tied the arms dealer up for police to find before he would go back and do the same to the others he had knocked out. Bunch of witless idiots who are just as dangerous to each other as they are to civilians. Eraserhead, Shoyuta Aizawa muttered to himself as he had heard about this meeting through the police network when he noticed something at the very bottom of the briefcase beneath the money and guns. Reaching down, he plucked it up out of there as he took a look at it. It was a sketching of a hand, showing 5 digits reaching out and engulfing over a city with a kanji for a word above it. The hand? He muttered to himself, wondering what this meant before he put it in his clothes and departed. Next chapter of The Devil of Ue. Izuku begins his first year and finally has his confrontation with Katsuki for the first time since the incident. Since no one really likes Mineta, as he's just a one-dimensional character whose gimmick is the overplayed creepy pervert, which is an anime trope that has been done to death, he's not in this as he failed the exams, which you may have caught last chapter. Also, some have been moved around in classes, which you'll see here. Basically, characters I found more interesting. Disclaimer: I don't own My Hero Academia. Izuku Midoriya felt like he was walking on air, literally, as he was seen leaping through the rooftops, a beaming smile on his face. He had done it, after all the years of being told that he couldn't, and what had happened a year ago. He had passed the enrollment and been accepted into UA. Having gotten the message earlier from a recording of All Might that he had. The green-haired hero in training leapt across, his walking cane in his other hand, as he had never felt so happy before in his life. He hit the ground and, picking up speed, ran to the edge and leapt again, performing a somersault as he did. As he fell, he wrapped his cane around a pipe and swung down it to the pavement below as he stopped before a convenience store, which was the place he had been heading to. The doors opened for him and he stepped inside. Izuku! A voice that sounded familiar said, suddenly catching his attention, making his ears perk up, and he turned his head towards it. "Tsuyu," he said in response, a look of surprise on his face. "I didn't suspect to see you here," the long-haired frog girl said as she saw him enter the convenience store. In her hand she carried a basket filled with items. "Me neither," he replied to her, as he hasn't seen her since the enrollment. "How are you?" "I'm alright, Ribbit. Just picking up some stuff to cook for dinner tonight." "Izuku, did you get the message today as well?" "Yes, I did. and I was granted acceptance into you. What about yourself? Me too. Truth be told, I was afraid to open it and find out. It wasn't until my siblings egged me into doing it that I opened it. Tsuyu replied. I was nervous too, thinking after all I did during the test that it wasn't enough. But I finally mustered the courage to open it. He said as he thought back to the disc arriving and upon activating All Might appearing via hologram with a recorded message that he had passed the tests. Tsuyu looked on as Izuku picked up items and placed them in a bag. Despite being blind, he seemed to know where everything was at as he went and picked up items. She looked on and went to the counter and paid at the cashier, and he soon joined her and paid for his as well. They exited the store and got ready to go their separate ways when they heard screaming. Oh, Izuku said as he detected it coming from north of here. That's not good. Tsuyu said, looking on in alarm at a construction site as a crane was going out of control. Looks like a machine had a malfunction. She said as people were running to avoid it falling on top of them, as it seemed as though it was imminent as it appeared to plummet. A crowd was watching on as a masked woman in spandex appeared and grew to giant size and caught the crane and positioned it right back, stopping it from falling and smashing to the ground, averting disaster. The lady in her giant form posed for the hundreds of cameras that had been whipped out, showing off her enlarged assets and figure to them. This will be going on for a while. Izuku noted as he could hear them clicking all at once, which was giving him a mild headache. What do you say we go a different route and get something to drink? My treat. There's a place nearby we can go to. Okay. Tsuyu replied to him. The two went and soon came to a cafe and went in and sat at a table. I've never really got the chance to talk with you when the testing was held because of all that was going on. Izuku said to her as each had a drink. Yeah, also I never got the chance to say it, but thanks for saving me from that turtle bot during the exams. Tsuyu said to him. No problem, Tsu, he replied with a smile. You never did say what your quirk is either. Well, my quirk is frog, and like it sounds like, I can do anything that a frog can do. I can leap up really over buildings and stick to most surfaces. I can also stretch out my tongue for about 20 meters. I also can spit out a toxic mucus, in case I can to sting someone. My parents aren't home often, so I have to take care of my siblings. Tsuyu explained to him. Therefore I wasn't able to make a lot of friends before as I was too busy with having to look after my brother and sister. Wasn't until the year before that I managed to make my first real friend. She told him, and he nodded his head in understanding. Well, here's to hoping that you make a lot more friends from here on. He said as he took a sip. Tsuyu nodded her head in understanding. Izuku, you said your senses are enhanced due to your quirk, right? Just how far enhanced are they? Pretty well. I can detect if a person is talking and hear them from across the room. I can also taste every ingredient in something such as this. He said, motioning to the cup that he had. My smells advanced as well. In the kitchen someone is putting out a burned sandwich which they cooked for too long. He told her, and Tsuyu looked on and saw one of the employees grabbing a fire extinguisher. I can read the label of things I'm looking for by pressing my fingers against the ink of a label on a jar. Plus I've developed a radar-like sense around my surroundings, letting me know of what's nearby and if someone's close by. See, you can see after all? Tsuyu asked him, a bit surprised. Not exactly, he replied to her. I can make out shapes and objects before me like this table and the chairs, but I couldn't tell you what the color of it is. He told her. Ribbit, I see. Tsuyu responded to him. Izuku, I know it's not my place to ask, but when your quirk activated, did your eyesight decrease because of it? No, an incident caused me to lose my vision. Izuku said to her. It never happened until after I lost my eyesight. I see. Sorry, I asked and pried into it. The waitress approached them as she laid a piece of paper on the table. Here's your bill, and because it's couples day, you each get 20% off. Izuku and Tsuyu spat out their drinks in unison, each of their faces burning bright red. Another year, another fresh batch of students hoping to become the greatest hero ever. Principal Nizu said, the mouse man said as he was seated in his chair at his office sipping hot cocoa. It feels like the years just blow right on, boy, wouldn't you say so, All Might? He said to the person seated on a couch. Indeed. All Might replied, but was shown in his shriveled up form. Watching these fresh new recruits reminds me of when I was their age. Filled with dreams and fantasies. He said as he took a sip of his own. Correct, this year's batch looks to be impressive though, especially Class 1A. Nizu said as he added marshmallows to his cup. Although old friend, I hope you don't mind me asking an innocent question. As long as you don't mind an innocent answer. The boy, Izuku Midoriya, raised quite a few eyebrows during the testing PRD. Not only for his efforts but for the fact that he was blind. A person with disabilities is not uncommon here. 5 years there was a girl who was confined to a wheelchair but her telekinesis made her the top student. All Might replied to him. Of course, UA shall never hold prejudice or bias against those with disabilities. My question is that the boy apparently did not have a quirk, I was told, or at least not one to the display of which he was showed when he took down that 0-pointer. One might say that the punch he delivered was very similar to your own, was it not? All Might stayed quiet for a long moment. I suppose you've learned my secret. Yes, I've passed down one for all to him. He's the next generation to hold it. I figured as much. Nizu said, a stern look appearing on his face. Your time is running out, isn't it, my friend? Yes, I can barely hold it for 2 hours now anymore. All Might mentioned to him as he looked at his reflection in the cup. A stark contrast to the figure who the world saw him as. My body is giving out on me. Although my spirit and heart is strong as ever, the toll it's taken over the years is too much. I don't have much longer. Soon I won't be able to use one for all anymore and will forever be like this. He said as only a scant few knew of this state. He let out a cough and brought a hand up to his mouth as a trickle of blood appeared. It will be a heavy day when you must retire. Nizu said, shaking his head, and so you've selected and have groomed Izuku Midoriya to be your successor, is it not? Having passed your quirk to him. Correct. If you don't mind my prying, how come you chose him? He did not have a quirk, and the incident which I read about he suffered has blinded him. Izuku was robbed of a chance at even a normal life. There are heroes out there without quirks every day. From doctors to firemen to more, bravely risking their lives without having any kind of superpowers, and yet the incident took that chance away from him. So it was pity in your heart then? No, All Might corrected him. Izuku showed in his heart to me when I meet him that despite it all he still wanted to be a hero, that if he had just even the tiniest sliver of a chance, he would take it. All Might said to him, thinking back to that day. He exceeded my expectations that I placed on him, even leapt over them. When he did whatever I asked of him with no complaint, whether it was cleaning up the beach, learning martial arts or other tasks, that was when I knew that he was the one, as his desire to be a hero burns brighter than the sun. Nizu nodded his head, coming to a full understanding. Well then, if you believe he is right, then I think he is right as well. I'm looking forward to monitoring his progress during the school year. All Might smiled at him and raised his cup up. So am I. 1 week later, Izuku was seated at a desk and minding his own business, twirling his cane in his hands. He could hear the voices of his fellow students. Sounded like there was 20 or so of them here in the classroom, he guessed. It was the first day of school at UA. After going to the auditorium for a welcoming speech, the students had then been sent to their respective classrooms. He had talked with Kirishima earlier, having been surprised but happy that he was in Class 1A as well. Along with others including Tenya. Tsuyu was seen speaking to several other female classmates. Among them was a girl who she got along with very well, who had pink skin and horns, named Mina. There was also the girl she had helped out in the exams named Okako, and a girl with purple hair and earlobes. All in all, it seemed like the first day was going to go smoothly, and Izuku was feeling pretty excited about how it was going to go. That is until two contrasting personalities meet for the first time. What you'd call me, you droopy-eyed shitbag? Katsuki shouted angrily, his voice filling the room of Class 1. Izuku, hearing it, let out a sigh, having not been surprised at it. I said that you're an annoyance. The violet-haired student replied to him. I was busy reading before class started, and you come in here barreling and stampeding in here like a drunken elephant and bothering everyone. He said, not bothering to turn and regard the angry blonde. Katsuki stepped forward, snarling when a cane interrupted his approach. That's enough. Izuku said, stopping him as he held it out in front of him. "Get out of my way, Deku." Katsuki growled at him, but Izuku held his ground. The door opened suddenly as all students turned their heads and saw a man with shaggy black hair and a perpetual tired look on his face in the doorway. Taking a long look at his assembled students standing there, he was surely tempted to turn right back out the door and go back to bed and forget about the day. He thought about giving the entire pack of brats Fs and expelling them right off the bat, but to his chagrin he couldn't do that. Save him a lot of time if Yue would let him, though, as he stepped into the room as everyone took their seat. "All of you shut up and be quiet. I'm Mr. Aizawa, and while you are in my class and my students, you will listen to what I say. First of all," he said before smiling in a comforting way, "I bet you all are feeling pretty confident, right? You passed the tests and were granted enrollment in the most prestigious school for heroes, which only 1 in 300 succeed in. So go ahead, give yourselves a nice long pat on the back, you deserved it." Aizawa said to them, and many in the room started to feel more at ease and relaxed. "Now that you have, I hope you realize just how stupid you must be if you thought that that was worth celebrating," he said in a dry tone, shocking them as his features turned back to his usual apathetic gaze. "Those bots you faced were intentionally designed and programmed to hold back against you. Even the zero-pointer, which our all-star, Mr. Izuku here destroyed, was only operating at 50% of its max power." He informed them. "If you think the rest of the next 4 years are going to be that easy, go ahead and get out of the room because we don't need you here. And instead of filling in professionally, some of you start to resort to fisticuffs with the day not even starting," the teacher said as he wasn't lacing any of his words with sugar. "A hero's path is tough and filled with many difficulties. That's why only a few last more than a couple years before quitting or getting killed in action. It's my job, unfortunately for me, to make sure that you are actually up to this, as there's a reason why not everyone can become a hero," Aizawa said to them. The shaggy-haired man looked on at the crop of students he had. He knew about Midoriya and Bakugo, the blonde having been highly recommended for the school and Midoriya being All Might's project, but the rest of the class weren't too shabby despite his complaints earlier. There was some who caught his eye more so. Shoto Todoroki, the son of the second-ranked hero in the world, Endeavor. Breed and raised for the sole purpose to surpass All Might and become the #1 hero. While he didn't fully approve of the upbringing, one couldn't deny his skill from it. Momo Yaoyorozu was the daughter of one of the richest families. Somewhere between Scrooge McDuck rich and Tony Stark rich, he'd guess. But despite it, she didn't flaunt her wealth or acted as though it made her better than everyone else, as she always was there to see if someone needed help. Tenya Ida was from a prestiged multi-generational family and had expectations placed on his shoulders, what with his brother being one of the top current heroes, strived to not bring shame to his family, what with his self-imposed strictness. It seemed he was placing far more on himself than his family had. Kid needed to learn how to relax. Tsuyu Azui was a capable girl who seemed to fit in any role that was given to her. She also was good at keeping her head clear and focus, having not panicked any at all during the tests, which was a good trait to have in the heat of battle. Ibara Shizaki, a girl whose long hair was so green you'd be forgiven if you mistake it for grass. By all accounts, she was a pacifist who only used her quirk for defense, never to harm. While a fight ending without any bloodshed was good, sometimes offensive force is the only thing villains will listen to. And last but not least, the one who had gotten into it earlier with Katsuki, it sounded like Hitoshi Shinso. The boy was rather infamous in his middle school from what he had read before about his quirk, and was ostracized because of it. Being constantly told that his quirk was more suited for a villain, yet had enrolled in you. He had seen the boy that had been looking on in envy at others that Aizawa had seen, as he had been bitter over his dealt hand and seemed surprised to be here. What he didn't know was that Aizawa had played a role in him being in this class. He had fought tooth and nail against the school board to let the boy be allowed entry into the hero course. He had too much potential for it to just be wasted in general department. Just because his quirk wasn't up to snuff of what most believed heroes should have didn't mean he shouldn't get a chance. All in all, they each had potential, but time would tell if they would just be flash in the pans or the next generation of heroes. Reaching behind a podium at the front of the room, he pulled out a blue bodysuit. "These are the uniforms you are going to be asking to wear during drills and such until you get your own costumes," Wear them with pride, yada yada, stuff like that. You are going to be passing them out? One student who was the tallest in the class and had 4 extra arms said, "Nope, you're going to have to go to the locker room and find them yourself. After you've changed, you'll meet me outside on the field." "How come?" a voice said next to him, and Aizawa was nearly startled as it was the invisible girl Toru. "Don't do that," he admonished her. "As I was saying, we're going to evaluate your quirks and assess your strengths. Oh, and I forget to mention, for every minute it takes to get out there, you'll be running 4 laps each." "What?" the classroom shouted in shock and protest. But sir, W don't know where the lockers are." A boy with blonde hair with a highlight like a bolt of lightning protested. Aizawa gave an rather unnerving grin in response. "Then you better go find them," he said as he lounged lazily in his chair and checked his phone. "Time's a wastin'," he mentioned as there was a mad dash out the doorway. "Gangway. Every man for himself. Teaching's not so bad after all," he thought to himself as he got up off the chair to head out. A while later, Class 1A was shown outside after having frantically found the locker room and dressed into the tracksuits meet up with their teacher. 7 minutes, so that's a total of 28 laps total. Aizawa said as he checked the timer. "We would have been here sooner if Koji hadn't stopped to pet a bird. Can't you cut us some slack?" The boy with lightning highlight named Denki protested in annoyance. "But it had lost its mommy. I couldn't leave it all alone until it found it," the rock-faced boy said as he had been adamant in helping the bird. "Sorry, but no excuses, even for lost baby birds. 28 laps. Aizawa replied to them. "But Mr. Aizawa," Achiko said to him, "isn't that a little excessive?" she asked, and he snorted in response. "What? You planning on flapping your arms to get where you want to go? Or do you have a private jetpack at home? In case you haven't noticed, footwork is 50% of a hero's job, and no one wants to be saved by a hero who's constantly out of breath because they don't feel like running. You think a bank robber is going to wait for you to catch them, is that it?" he said to them. "But we're not running yet. Like I said, first we're going to check your strength," he said, and pulled from a bucket a white softball similar to a baseball. "I want you all to throw these using your quirks, that way we get an assessment of just how strong you are." "That's all we must do, sir?" Ibra asked him. "Yep, really complicated, isn't it?" he answered dryly. "Don't damage your brains too much trying to figure it out. Now who's first?" "Hey, I'll go," Katsuki said, and stepped forward and took one of the ball. Gripping it so hard it was a wonder that it didn't burst, he then tossed it, activating his quirk. "Die!" he yelled as it went sailing through the air, a path of destruction in its wake. 720.6, not bad but still short of the record, Aizawa said, looking at the light-up scoreboard, and Katsuki smirked arrogantly. "You all see that? You backup dancers might as well go back inside. No way you'll ever be able to make half of that," he said, and many in 1A took offense to that. "Sounds like he's calling you out. Don't just stand there with your tongues hanging out. Step forward and prove him wrong," Aizawa said, and Kirishima was the first to try. The wild-haired boy threw it with all his might and was frustrated when he only cracked 690, and after that a large muscular boy who wolfed a cupcake down in one bite went, followed by Mina and then a boy with a tail. "I'll go," Izuku said after a while, and stepping to it picked up one of the ball up. Taking it in hand, he felt its shape and form as he held the ball. Taking a deep breath, he concentrated as he held the ball up as he focused, and brought his arm up for a practice throw as he judged the weight of it and the best angle for him to throw it. "While my hair hasn't turned gray yet, kid," Aizawa called out to him to hurry up. Izuku paid him no mind as he steeled himself and, getting ready, brought the ball up and turned his hips to the side. "Now!" he shouted, mentally bringing it forward, and chucked the ball as he activated One for All. The ball whizzed by as he threw it with all his might. A gust of wind picked up, blowing his teacher's hair to the side. The ball kept going on and on. 789.8, color me less unimpressed than usual, Aizawa said as he read the score. Izuku smirked and moved his hand and fingers. There was no bone fractures or cracks in them. He finally managed to do it in short spurts without damaging his body as he had before. Now he can try and go up to 10% now that he had accomplished it. "Nice, Way to go, Izuku! Ijiro shouted, having cheered him on. Izuku smiled as he walked back to the group standing between Tsuyu and Todoroki. It continued on, but the only person who managed to exceed that was Okako, who used her levitation quirk to send the ball flying as far as she wanted to. Okay, so you know how to throw a ball? He told them after it was all done. Now we're going to test your stamina and cardio. Learn up over here and get ready to run. Water will be passed and handed out to you if you need it. If you can't finish, consider yourself done for the year. He told them. The class began to head over to the starting line. Izuku went as well when a hand grabbed him by the collar of his outfit and was turned around. Mind explaining how in the world you managed to do that? Katsuki said, demanding to know how he beat him. Izuku pulled himself away from his grip and dusted himself off. By working hard, Katsuki. He answered, and Katsuki scoffed in disbelief. Cut the BS, Deku. Even if you worked hard non-stop for 5 years, no way would someone like you who's a complete wimp would be able to do that. He told him. You really think I haven't spent all this time working out, Katsuki? Izuku responded to him. I told you that I was going to become a great hero, remember? He told him, and many had overheard and noticed what was going on. Aizawa watched on as well, getting ready to step in if necessary, as he felt that this was a long time coming between them. How'd a weakling with no quirk be able to do that, let alone knock down a 50-foot robot? You've been hiding this whole time ever since we were little that you were quirkless, weren't you? Katsuki accused him. I managed to beat you in something, and that's when you decide to talk to me in over a year? Izuku said, a look of disbelief on his face. How you not realized what I've been put through this past year? What I've had to do to adapt to being blind now? And now you are talking to me? The only thing that I hid was that I was blind when I took the enrollment test because I didn't want people to think that I was helpless. I wasn't hiding a quirk, and what happened back there a year ago with the chemicals hitting my face didn't magically give me one. The blonde was silent for the first time, not saying anything. Did you even begin to think about what I've gone through that day, unable to see? To be cast in total darkness? What it's like to have your eyes be opened but not see nothing but a whirl of black around you? Izuku asked him. Katsuki, because of what happened I can't even see my mother smile at me anymore, let alone watch TV or look at the sunset. And yet, ever since that time, you've said nothing or haven't even talked to me since then. Izuku said to him. From what I heard, you was only there for a short while and left the hospital soon after I got there and didn't even ask how I was. For all you knew, I probably could have died, and it was a miracle I didn't. Teach, what the hell do you want me to say then? Sorry? Fine, I'm sorry for what happened back there. How am I supposed to react to what happened, huh? I didn't see that truck coming or know what was going to happen back then. But it's not my fault that you didn't get out of the way of the truck. Katsuki argued at him. If you had just moved instead of standing there, none of this would have happened. All this time, and you think that I'm the one to blame for what happened back there? That it's my fault? Your apology is as fake as your excuse. Izuku said in disgust, and Katsuki was ready to explode. To hell with you, Deku. And to hell with your demon's sobbing mother. He shouted at him. Izuku glared hard at Katsuki behind his glasses. You always are going to have that pathetic chip on your shoulder, aren't you? Acting as if the world owes you everything. You strut around acting as if you are responsible for the sun raising every day, and without you everyone would die. You know why no one likes you? Because you're an a-hole, that's why. A self-absorbed a-hole who spares no thoughts or consequences towards the stuff you do, regardless of how it affects others from what you do. He told him. To hell with me? To hell with you, Katsuki. Izuku shouted at him. And if you ever say anything about my mother again, I'll beat the living snot out of you. Died you? Katsuki shouted, consumed with rage, as he lunged his arm forward and fired an explosion. However, to his shock, Izuku shifted his body to the side and dodged it, and then fearlessly grabbed him by the arm. The next thing he knew, he was on the ground hard as he had been tossed and thrown overhead by Izuku, having used his martial arts training against him, utilizing a judo throw. The boy, who he had mocked and insulted for 10 years, was looking down at him with contempt written all over his face. Katsuki grinded his teeth so hard against one another that it was an utter miracle that they hadn't shattered to pieces. That is enough, Aizawa said, as he had let this gone on far enough. You two got past pent-up aggression with each other you wanna let out? Fine, can't expect everyone to get along with everybody. That's good and dandy, but I'm not having it here or during school. Consider yourselves both put on probation for 1 month from this. One more interaction like that between you two from here on, and you both will be expelled permanently. This is your first and last warning. He told them. Reluctantly, the two each went their separate way, but neither fully dropping the matter. Now then, unless anyone else feels like making this into some soap opera drama, all of you shut up and line up. 28 laps, no quirks, go. He said, ordering them to begin running. Grudgingly, the class began to do laps, breaking off into a run as they began their marathon. Aizawa sat and lounged on the grass as he knew this would take a while. While they was at it, he could freely think back to what he had been working on the past week, thinking back to the sketch he had found in that arms dealer's bag a while back. The hand, he muttered to himself. He had checked newspapers and looked online but had found no mention of them. He first thought they were some upstart illegal weapons trader, but it appeared not to be. The hero couldn't find a single trace of them, as if they never even existed. Raising his head up, he looked on as some had began their 4th lap, whilst others had finished their 2nd. The start of a new year at UA begins. For those who have been asking, yes, Izuku is going to be getting Daredevil's outfit and gear soon. Disclaimer: I don't own My Hero Academia. Izuku was seen working out at the gym that All Might had enrolled him in a year ago, using a staff in hand to practice blows and attacks as he was defending himself from 2 others who were fighting him at the same time. Getting in some early exercise before he headed to UA. He dodged an attack, tilting his body to the side, and brought his up to block the other one. Using his momentum against him, he threw him over on his side, and hearing the other opponent preparing to attack, ducked and jabbed the back end of it into his stomach, causing him to inhale deeply. A hit on the shoulder though reminded him to never drop his guard though. He continued onwards, practicing his techniques and attacks as others who he had trained and learned under looked on in the room, gauging how his progress was coming along. As that was happening, the scene shifted to the slums, where a black scrawny man was seen walking and staying out of sight. Last thing the pathetic man wanted was more trouble. Never should have came to this stinkin', the arms dealer grumbled. It was supposed to be an easy gig, sell guns to any sucker stupid enough to part with money and get paid 10 times the amount for doing so. But some DMN scarf-wearing hero had to show up and arrest him and ruin all his work. It took everything he had to post bail. Not even the guys who had hired him in the first place had helped him out, apparently seeing him as expendable. Unfortunately for Turk Barrett, his day was about to get worse. A hand reached out from the alley and grabbed the unsuspecting man. He was pulled in and slammed chest first against the wall. Who the hell do you think you're? Oh snap, it's you. Turk's bluster went right out the window when he saw just who it was that had grabbed him. Standing before him was none other than All Might. I've got some questions for you, and you're going to answer them. All Might said. What do I look like, some gypsy fortune teller? Turk Dal replied, either feeling very brave or very stupid right now. Interrogation wasn't All Might's strong point, but it was easy to do when you're more than 4 times the size of the guy you want info from. I ain't tellin' ye. Turk's attempt at resisting was broken down when his arm was twisted in ways it wasn't meant to be. Okay, but... Okay. Turk shouted in pain as All Might was ready to snap his arm off like a twig. I got some info. Not much, but it's a little. He pleaded. Tell me. All Might said, still applying quarter pressure, which even that was more than enough to pull his arm clean off. Who are the hand? A syndicate? An alliance of villains? The name of a rock band? He demanded to know. I don't know who they are exactly. All I know is that some guys who I think are Yakuza offered to pay me to distribute weapons to some of the locals around here. They said that if I did, they'd pay me in gold. What else? All Might said, demanding more info as he slightly applied more pressure. But, geez, what I'd ever do to you to deserve this? Turk yelled in pain. Only thing else I know is that they told me that if I meet some head honchos of major villain syndicates was to show them that piece of paper and they'll comply. Now come on, show a brother a little mercy? I ain't done nothing. What are their reasons for supplying hoodlums and 2-bit thugs with firearms? All Might questioned him. They didn't tell me why. I don't ask questions. People offer me cash and I do the job, you know? Now come on, muscles. I used every penny I had left to make bail. I'm broke and they took away my weapon stash. I ain't doing anything bad the rest of my time here, I promise. All Might knew he wouldn't get any more useful information from the pathetic man and gave a final sharp twist of his arm and shoved Turk away. I hope to never see you around here again. He warned him before leaping off into the air. Now, the flashy-looking hero said as he drew on the chalkboard. What is wrong with the sentence here? He asked the assembled class. For someone who was possessed with a bombastic character, Present Mike was a dull teacher, as many in the class had to fight the urge to place their heads on their desks and fall asleep. Class 1A was in the middle of English and fighting the urge to not leap out of the windows, and ended all as time seemed to be mocking them with how long it was taking. Finally it ended, and soon it was time for lunch, which was ran by a pro hero. Izuku was seen seated at the table, eating his food calmly by himself, his dark shades over his eyes as he took bites of it and took a sip of juice. Midoriya, a voice said, suddenly catching his attention, and he lifted his head up and tilted it towards the direction of where it was coming from. Shinso? Izuku said, a bit surprised to see him approach him as the violet-haired student sat down across from him. Is there something you need? He asked, curious as to why he was coming over to see him. No, the baggy-eyed trainee responded. I just wanted to talk to you. He responded to him. You intervened the first day when me and Bakugo got into it, remember? Yeah, I remember. He answered him. He and I have history together before. Not many sit there and call him names to his face though. He said, recalling how Hitoshi had reacted to him when they had first met. I've met guys like him all the time in my middle school. Barging in louder than a freight train and yelling at the top of their lungs because they forget the sound of their own voice every 5 seconds. He said with distaste, and Izuku nearly choked on his drink at his description of people. I take it you weren't Mr. Popular in your middle school then? Izuku dryly said. Far from it, and my quirk did little to help me either. Hitsuhei replied to him. I'm sure you know what my quirk is, right, when we all had to introduce ourselves after running laps the first day. That's right, Izuku replied as they got to know each other and state their names after it. You said your quirk was hypnosis, wasn't it? My quirk is brainwashing, meaning that I can take control of anyone who talks to or answers a question from me. Hitoshi explained. Once it was found out though, I was the one everyone stayed away from. He said to Izuku, a bitter look on his face. What do you mean? Everybody I met always told me once they learned about it how that was more suited for a villain and didn't speak to me out of fear that I would brainwash them and make them do stuff. Unlike everyone else in UA, my quirk is a curse. Then why did you enroll in UA then? Izuku asked him. Don't let what others say about me fool you. My goal in life is to become a hero. Hitoshi answered him. Ever since I was little, and watching others bravely risk their lives without a second thought inspired me to become a hero. He said, and Izuku then realized that they weren't so different. Both idolized heroes and wanted to be one despite their setbacks before them that hindered them. But because of how the testing was done against robots, with my quirk being useless there, because I'm not a powerhouse, not can shoot flames out of my butt, applying to general studies was my only real shot at getting accepted into UA. He told him, as the test was designed unknowingly giving those whose quirks such as Shinsu's at a disadvantage. I was surprised when I found out that I had been accepted and enrolled into the hero course. Well, I wanted to enroll in the hero course no matter what, even if I didn't have a quirk. Izuku said to him. Lots of people do each year regardless of what their quirk does. They wouldn't have put you in it unless they believed you could do it. He told Hitoshi. Don't you remember a hero named Boxer? I know him. I had his premium trading card when I was young. I have 5 of them, all in mint condition. He said with a touch of pride, recalling a hero before All Might's time. Despite how silly his quirk sounded and appeared to be, he used it effectively to trap villains in them and was voted number 3 in the top 20 heroes before he retired. If a guy who could use boxes as weapons be one of the great heroes, then anyone could be, regardless of their quirk or powers. He told his classmate. On the other side of the room, the girls of 1A were seen seated all together at the table. The girls were talking about the usual things that girls gossiped about. shopping, clothes and boys. Good to see that except for Kaminari, most of the boys are well behaved and don't try anything. Jiru said as they discussed their classmates of the opposite gender. Thank goodness, I was afraid that some of them would be perverts who might try to sneak into the locker room. Achiko replied as they talked. What about you, Momo? Mina asked. I saw you eyeing that blonde boy the first day. Bakugo, was it? No thanks, he may grow up to be handsome but his attitude is repulsive. The wealthy girl said, shaking her head. Although the other one, Todoroki, seems like the shy type who's afraid to open up to others. She said, twirling her fork in between her fingers. What about you, Ibra? She asked the grass-haired girl. As a Christian, he goes against my beliefs to show interest in the opposite sex until I am of legal age. The religious girl replied, deflecting the question. You're no fun then, Momo said with a pout, wondering if Ibra was wearing a chastity belt underneath her school uniform. But what about you, Tsuyu? Are ribbit me? Tsuyu said in response, having not expected attention to be directed towards her. Yeah, you seem rather sweet with that blind boy from what I saw. Mina said. His name's Izuku. Oh, first name basis already with him are we? Toru asked in a teasing tone of voice. Quit it. Tsuyu said, admonishing her. Now, let's not be asking which one gets to be her bridesmaids. Jiru said, joining in the teasing. It's not funny, Tsuyu said as she blushed deeply as Mina began to sing a certain song. After lunch, classes resumed until it was time for basic hero training. Having assembled in the room, the class looked but the teacher wasn't there. Where the hell's the teach? Katsuki grumbled out loud. Fine job wasting my time, he said, but was ignored by most of the class. Well, maybe they was involved in the incident that happened recently and can't make it. Denki Kaminari spoke up. What do you mean? Tenya asked, turning his head to look at him. What are you talking about? He asked, wanting information. Well, haven't you heard? Apparently 2 nights ago a group of heroes were busting up a drag operation and in the middle of doing so were ambushed. They were caught off guard by it and unable to defend themselves from the assault. Denki said to them, What you mean? Was it a setup by them? Ajiro asked. No, from what I heard when they got there they discovered that someone had already killed the drag dealers and then attacked them. Whoever did it attacked both villain and hero. They didn't even had time to react before it happened. They were just lucky to get out of there alive if not for the police backup that was stationed there. And it wasn't some run-of-the-mill heroes either. What I heard was both were in the top 15 rankings. And the drag dealers were butchered, cut up and shot without mercy. They didn't even take or post photos of the remains because of how gruesome it was. Denki said, a grave tone in his voice. How barbaric. Ibra said, looking pale at his description of the events. The heroes would live but they are forced to retire because of their crippling wounds. One has to walk with a cane from now on and the other lost an eye. Whoa, Jiru said, looking up from her desk. Well, don't worry ladies, he said with a Casanova grin. I'm here to protect you all in case the slime ball ever shows up here. Ugh, in your dreams. Momo said, shaking her head at his delusions. Was there any clues as to who did it? Izuku asked as it had caught his attention. But before he could get an answer, I am here. A voice shouted, startling the class as the door opened and in stepped a massive giant of a man. Entering like a normal person. All Might. The class shouted, not having expected to see him appear in their classroom. Good afternoon, hopeful trainees. All Might said, clad in a teacher's suit and tie, proclaimed to them. I am looking forward to handling your class today. He proclaimed to them as he stood at the front of the room. Whoa, totally awesome, Kirishima exclaimed. Getting taught by the manliest hero in the world. He said, and All Might smirked. Listen up, you bunch of newbies. Here is the assignment you shall be undertaking for today. We all know that villains' preferred method is to make a robbery and then dash off, but the dangerous ones are those who seek to commit damage and threaten lives. Therefore we are having a contest with you all being split into teams of heroes and villains. All Might explain to them. The villain team will have set up a nuclear explosive device and it's up to the hero team to stop them and deactivate the bomb while the villains try to run out the clock. This is a combat trial simulation you're undergoing to get you ready for the real thing. While this is merely practice, I expect all of you to give it beyond plus ultra during it. Class 1A looked on many excited at the prospect. And before I forget, I have a special surprise for all of you, he said and pressed a button. The walls suddenly gave away, splitting about, and revealed racks, and on them were suitcases. The outfits you've submitted have been met with approval and finished. So go and suit up. Naturally, boys, you're going to be in a separate room from the girls for this. Meet me at ground beta after you've done so, he said before dashing out of the room. The students stood up and went and grabbed the cases that had their names on them and undressed and began putting on their hero outfits. Ranging from flashy, eye-catching outfits to suits of armor that they had asked for and designed. Izuku ran his fingers over the material of the costume. His mother had made it for him, having done it all herself, and he was going to wear it with pride, knowing what it represented for the both of them. Even if he couldn't fully see it. He put it on and slipped the mask that came with it over his face, which was designed to mimic All Might's facial structure and pointy hair ends. After dressing into their costumes, all 20 students were soon at the testing room where they would randomly be paired up with a partner for the training, with one team being heroes and the other being villains, who would have a 5-minute head start to go and prepare defenses, and then the hero team would go after them. There was computer screens set up so the rest of the students would watch and see how it unfolded. Check it out, Kaminari's almost to the bomb, ribbit. Tsuyu said as in the first match he was teaming with Koji against the villain team of Ibara and Masahiro. Looks like it's just you and me, Toots. The electric quirk user said as Ibara stood in front of him, preventing him from getting to the bomb. I don't suppose you'll just let me pass and then go on a date with me right after this? He offered with a smirk. Your hair can provide an all-you-can-eat salad buffet. Take this seriously, will you? Ibara, who was clad in a plain white robe like that of a priestess, scolded him, not interested in his actions. My powers are meant to be used for defense only. I have no intentions of using them to bring harm to one another. She told him. Well then, if you won't attack, I guess I'll have to take the offensive then, he said and lunged at her, looking to tackle her as he charged up. I bet you're really ticklish. Multiple vines sprouted from Ibara's hair and extended and graped him and wrapped Denki's body up, immobilizing him as she entrapped him with zero effort. Hey, can't you learn to realize that it was just a joke? Denki sheeply asked from his position as Ibara waited for time to run out. Such vulgar and repulsive attitude is unbecoming of a hero. Ibara chastised him. You should spend more time purifying your soul than giving into the sin of lust. Victory to the villain team. All Might announced, giving the win to her and Masahiro. More matches went on as teams went and competed against one another. Whoa ho ho! Did you see that power slam through the floor? Ijiro exclaimed, being pumped up by what he saw. Straight out of New Japan Pro Wrestling, that was. What's happening? Izuku asked, not knowing what was going on as he had been mentally getting ready. What do you mean? Didn't you see that move on the screen they just did? Ijiro asked. I'm blind, remember? Izuku said dryly. Oh, right. Well, since you can't see, Rikido was facing Mizo and consuming sugar to boost his strength, picked him up and, as Kirishima eloquently put it, body slammed him, but Mizo recovered and at that close range used his multiple arms to overpower and bind Rikido and then wrapped the capture tape around him, thus subduing him. Tenya said, explaining it to him what had happened. That leaves only Achiko, who's guarding the bomb while Tsuyu is trying to get to it. Tsuyu was seen sprinting on all fours and leaping up and off the walls. Achiko was levitating and throwing rocks and other objects in the room at her, and she skillfully dodged it as she scaled up top of the walls out of range of her attacks. Come down here and fight me, Achiko challenged Tsuyu, who scaled the walls, her hands and feet sticking to them. She looked and soon saw the bomb, and she could leap to it at that distance and shut it off. Tsuyu leapt at the bomb, looking to deactivate it, when she suddenly stopped in midair, being held in place. Ribbit! She exclaimed, caught off guard as she couldn't move as she was floating in the air. Sorry, Tsuyu. Achiko apologized to her, a rather unnerving competitive look on her face. But a hero's gotta do what they can to win, she said as she held the frog girl in the air, trapping her with her levitating quirk. Tsuyu struggled against the hold that Achiko had on her but found herself unable to break it. She could move her arms and legs but couldn't break hold of the levitating grip on her, meaning she couldn't break free. It then hit her. If she could move her legs and arms, then that must also mean. Tsuyu's tongue lashed out and struck the bomb, deactivating it, shocking Achiko, having not expected her to be able to use it the way she did. Victory to the hero team. All Might said as she and her assigned partner had won. And I must say too, well done in the heat of battle for remembering that your tongue can extend despite your body being immobilized. And Achiko, good performance, but always remember that even a dropped guard for a second can turn victory into defeat. He said, praising the both of them for their efforts after they got back. Good job both of you out there. Momo said, complimenting the two teams. You did good out there too. Izuku said as well as he finished checking his gear, unaware of her smiling in response at his praise. The next contest wasn't really a contest, as Todoroki's partner just calmly stepped outside and waited for him to freeze the villain team of as the dual Quirk trainee won it single-handedly. Well, that was underwhelming. A voice said, and All Might turned his head and saw Aizawa standing there. Eraserhead, what are you doing here? Trying to encroach and muscle in on my territory, are you? Asked suspiciously, and Aizawa let out a snort. I've got nothing else to do for the day, so I'm just here to watch and see how my class is doing. He replied. See if they're taking this seriously or think they are enrolling in clown school. Mr. Aizawa. A voice said, and he looked to see where it was coming from but didn't see anyone. Right here, sir. He said and looked and saw a floating glove right in his face. It's me, Toru. Don't do that. He admonished her again and then noticed that she had on just a pair of gloves and shoes. Toru, where's your outfit? He asked her. This is my outfit. She stated to him. You mean that you can turn your other clothes invincible as well? Nope, I'm all naked underneath here. She proclaimed, causing him to facepalm. Of course you are. He said and looked on at the next match that was going on. And our next match is... All Might said as pictures rotated before stopping. Heroes Izuku Midoriya and Hitoshi Shinso versus villains Katsuki Bakugo and Yuga Aoyama. He stated, announcing the teams. The two teams lined up. Laserbelly, don't you dare drag me down, and leave Deku the hell alone. He's all mine, you hear? Katsuki stated. Izuku paid him no attention as he took a deep breath as his partner stood next to him. Hitsuhei was wearing an old-fashioned private eye outfit that was a blue color complete with a hat over his head. Looking like something out of the movies or detective novels. Villain team, go. All Might shouted, signaling them to begin as the contest started. Izuki and Hitsuhei waited until 5 minutes had passed. Bomb has been planted, hero team Gyo. At that they went into the building. So I suppose you've come up with an ingenious plan then? Hitoshi asked as they went down a corridor. Honestly, no disrespect to Yuma, but Katsuki will be the real danger. You know how powerful Quirk is, right? He said, and Hitoshi nodded his head. And he loves to play mind games as well and get underneath your skin. I take it he doesn't call people nicknames for fun then? Hitsuhei dryly asked. Katsuki is a talker, he'll always try to mock and trash talk you. The best way to counter it is to ignore him and make him matter so he'll get sloppy in his attacks. Izuku said, his voice muffled through the mask he wore. At times he had to lift it up so he could get some air as he wasn't used to wearing it. A talker then, perfect. Hitsuhei said, and a hint of a smirk showed on his face as that was the perfect opponent for him. I can hear someone nearby, he told him. Someone's talking. Can you tell who it is? I believe it's Aoyama, Izuku said as he focused his hearing. The voice isn't rough or rude. He said as he listened in. Let me take care of him, he seems the easily distracted sort, and from what I heard from him, he can only shoot for a second before his stomach cramps up. He said, but Shinso shook his head. Hold on, let me do it. We don't know where Bakugo is, and from what you said, Bakugo's the true threat and you need to be at full strength to face him should we encounter him. How do you plan on getting him then? Izuku asked. I'll create a distraction and when his back is to me, use the capture tape to bind him. He replied, holding it up. Just as long as his back is to me, I can avoid his power. Izuku thought it over before nodding his head. All right, be careful, he said, and his teammate left without saying a word. Hitsushi was seen holding the capture tape in his arms as he quietly went through the building. Listening in, he could hear Yuma's voice getting louder the closer he got. That's right, keep yapping, he muttered and peeked his head around a corner. The flamboyant trainee was spotted and had his back to Shinzo, seemingly unaware of his presence as he was chatting. Reaching up to his hat, he took it off and threw it at the wall. Yuga said, turning around and spotted the hat on the floor. Oh, is somebody near? He asked and stepped forward. Come on out, there's no need to hide in the darkness like a rat. He set a smile on his face as he went forward and investigated the hat that had been left. Hitoshi suddenly emerged from the corner and charged him, looking to bind him, but Yuga's guard was up more than he expected and ducked low, catching him off guard, and he slipped past him and had to stop himself from crashing. So sorry, hero, but I'm afraid that good will not win today, no? The flashy boy said to Hitoshi. Another talker. Hitoshi muttered in response as the boy sparkled and prepared to fire. Hitoshi, are you there? Izuku asked, but silence was all he got in return. After waiting a minute had passed, he had called in to see who he was doing. Hitoshi, come in. He repeated but still got no answer. No, he said, gritting his teeth, as that meant that either his partner was unconscious or had been captured. Whatever had happened, he was on his own now. He thought about going to help him out, but time wasn't on his side. He couldn't go find him and then try to shut off the bomb. The only other option left was to go it alone. He went on through the building, keeping quiet and being stealthily, all of his senses focused as he went on. Katsuki was somewhere around here, and it was better to get the drop on him than the other way around. The wall gave way, having been destroyed, and shown standing there through the smoke clad in his outfit was Katsuki. Deku, he sneered at him. Katsuki, Izuku responded as he stood up in front of him. Where's the bomb? It's right behind me, all you gotta do is beat me before it runs out. Katsuki taunted him as it was shown behind him. Izuku reached behind his person and pulled out a baton. You really think that puny stick is gonna do any good? He said, insulted that he would face him with just that. Do you want to get your butt kicked that badly then? Izuku didn't say anything as he made a couple swings with it. Take your best shot. He challenged him. Katsuki roared and lunged at him and fired off an explosion from his hand. Izuku dodged it and went low and shoulder tackled him. The blow knocked the wind out of Katsuki, having not expected him to use such force. Snarling, he threw a fist at Izuku, who dodged it. The two went at it with one another. Katsuki released explosives as Izuku countered using his martial arts and fighting technique he had developed over the year. Opening up a betting pool, I say Izuku wins. Ijiro shouted, looking on. Young man, I should warn you that gambling is an ugly hobby to take up. All Might lectured him before leaning in close. So no one could hear. Put 2,000 yen down for me on him. A year ago, Izuku Midoriya would have been terrified of facing Katsuki Bakugo and being on the receiving end and up close with his attacks. But after a year of training and going through so much hardship and overcoming the odds, he knew he had nothing to fear from him now anymore. He reflexively dodged and avoided his exploding attacks, the training he had undergone enabling him to know where Katsuki was aiming his attacks before he even did them. He spun out of the way of Katsuki's attack and struck him across the face, delivering an open palm strike which staggered him, who wildly released an attack which he avoided and swung his weapon. Katsuki let out a yell of pain as the iron baton struck against his shin, and he was then hit by it in the jaw, leaving a bruise. Not bad for a puny stick, is it? Izuku taunted him. In fury, Katsuki unleashed explosives with both hands, sending attacks everywhere in an attempt to get him. Dim in it, Katsuki, stop. Izuku shouted at him. You keep up with those blasts and you'll bring this whole building down on us. He yelled at him as he was taking this way too seriously. It'll be worth it to beat you. He snarled at him and released more blasts. The gauntlets he wore amplified his attacks, making them stronger than they were before. Katsuki! All Might's voice announced over the intercom. Continuing to unleash destructive attacks will damage the bomb and thus disqualify your team. Who cares? So long as I beat this loser. Katsuki said, ignoring the warnings, and let loose more explosions. Stupid idiot. Izuku muttered under his breath. He dodged one and threw his baton at Katsuki, who just missed it, colliding against his head. He then realized that was a diversion as Izuku ran, flipped over him, and dashing retrieved his weapon and went at the bomb. No! Katsuki shouted as he wasn't going to let him win and fired an explosion off at the roof. The roof gave way, dropping debris right in front of Midoriya. Midoriya was knocked backwards and the mask he wore became dislodged and was knocked off of his head, exposing his face. He shook his head, feeling disoriented, but didn't have time to relax as he rolled out of the way of a blast. His head stung as he shook it, trying to focus. It sounded like 100 birds were chirping all at once, putting a strain on his hearing. Katsuki saw it, seeing how he was being affected by it, and snapped his fingers together in curiosity, setting off a loud blast. The blast echoed around the room. Ah! Izuku shouted, clamping his hands over his ears, trying to drown out the sound. Katsuki released another one and Izuku screamed in pain as he couldn't protect himself. Hey, what's wrong with Izuku? Those attacks ain't even hitting him, but they seem to be hurting him. Ijiro asked, not understanding what was happening. From the way it looks, Bakugo is only using his explosives to make loud sounds. But other than being annoying, it shouldn't really bother him that much, should it? Mina said, as many were confused by what was happening. I know your weakness now, Deku, Katsuki said as he knew what he had to do. While your senses are sharper, they are also highly sensitive, aren't they, especially your ears? He said and let loose another loud blast. It's like a train going right by you whenever one goes off, isn't it? He said, letting out more and more explosions. Izuku clutched at his head, having fallen to his knees, trying to drown out the sound as his head felt like it was being pounded on like a drum. Katsuki took the advantage, letting out more and more loud sounds which staggered and hurt Izuku. He stepped closer to him, letting out small but loud-sounding explosives, taking pleasure in it. Izuku, clutching at his hand, swung at him, which he missed badly and knocked him down, slamming his hands into his chest. A scraping sound was heard which caught his attention as he turned his head. Katsuki looked on and an arrogant smirk appeared on his face as Yuga was dragging his opponent by the collar on the ground, who appeared to be unconscious. Hitoshi laid there limply, not moving a muscle. You lose as usual, Deku, Katsuki said to Izuku. Your droppy-eyed partner is as useless as you are. Even if he wasn't knocked out, you two pathetic losers together wouldn't have a chance at beating me. He mocked him with a sadistic grin. 1 minute remains. All Might's voice boomed through the speakers. Izuku gritted his teeth as it appeared he had no choice but to surrender the contest. Tsuyu looked on at the screens, watching with the others. Hang in there, Izuku, she said as it appeared hopeless for him. You lose, Deku, Katsuki shouted, preparing to unleash a blast with both hands. As that was happening, Hitoshi, who everyone had ignored this entire time over what was happening, lifted his head up and opened his eyes and smiled. Yuga let go of him and suddenly fired a laser at Katsuki, who saw it coming and just barely dodged it in the nick of time. What the hell? Katsuki shouted in shock as Yuga had apparently betrayed them and fired another laser at him. We are supposed to be on the same team, remember, dumbass? He yelled at him, but Yuga didn't say anything in response as he fired at him again. Damn it! Stop, laser belly! He shouted and counterattacked as they clashed with each other, explosions against lasers. What in the world? Tenya said, not understanding what was going on, and many as well were confused as well as to why Yuga was attacking his own teammate. Unbeknownst to them, Hitoshi having feigned being knocked out the whole time. When he had encountered Aoyama, he took advantage of his talkative nature and brainwashed him with his quirk. Once he had him under his control, he ordered him to lead him to where the battle between the others was at. He had made it look like he had been defeated and dragged there by Yuga to get Katsuki to drop his guard, and then had Yuga attack him. Go! He shouted into the earpiece to Izuku. Izuku heard the chaos that was happening and saw his opening. Whilst the two were preoccupied with fighting, he dashed towards where the bomb was at. With only seconds left on the timer, he charged at it, knowing that he had to shut it off before it was too late. His hands smacked against it in the nick of time, shutting it off. Bomb has been secured and deactivated. Victory to the hero team. All Might's voice echoed all around. Yuga blinked, unaware of all that happened, not being able to recall anything. Did we win? He asked Katsuki, who looked ready to strangle him for costing them the match. The four soon met back up in the surveillance room with the other classmates, which soon became three as Katsuki had stormed off and sulked in the corner of the room after making it back. Looking on, Aizawa could only shake his head in disapproval. That was a nail-biter of a matchup. All Might said, looking on. Now then, of the four, who here performed the best? He asked the other classmates. Shinso, from my analysis, is the MVP. Momo stated, speaking up. He feigned having been knocked out the whole time and everyone believed him to be out of action. But what had really happened was that he used his quirk to brainwash Aoyama, fooling everyone into what was going on, and then had him attack Bakugo, thus making them fight one another and be unable to defend the bomb. Also, Bakugo was more focused on attacking than defending the bomb and risked getting disqualified due to being over-excessive with how he used his quirk. Without Shinso, Midoriya, who despite showing no fear in the face of adversity, would never have been able to deactivate the bomb. His quirk, while lacking in offensive capabilities when used correctly, can turn villains against one another and change the tide of battle and snatch victory from the jaws of defeat. Yes, that's what I would say also. All Might said, clearing his throat. Well done, Hitoshi. You have taken the first step into becoming a hero. He said to him, who looked surprised that All Might would praise him as he gave him a thumbs up. Izuku looked on, running his fingers over the mask in his hands. Perhaps he could make some adjustments to it, so that it'd be more fitting for him to wear. Cut off and remove part of it at the bottom so he could breathe better through it, and trim the upper part of it. As much as he idolized All Might, designing it to look like his face wasn't the most practical choice his mother had made. I'd say this was a good day of training. All Might said later on after it was completed. I hope to see you all soon. He said and hastily left, knowing he was almost out of time before he had to revert back to his scrawny form. Just a sec, a voice said, and they looked and saw Aizawa standing there in the room. You're not dismissed just yet. I want to talk to you all for a second. He told them. Great, how did we miss up this time? Denki asked, ready to be admonished by him. Good job today. Eraserhead said. Huh. Mr. Aizawa, did you just compliment us? Mina asked, not believing her ears, along with many in the class. Are you feeling all right? You worked hard today, he said to them as he stood before his class. Work still needs to be done, but I'm happy that you made some progress. Showing me that you are all actually taking this school seriously and not wasting my time and yours in your work. The shaggy-haired hero said to them. I know you all probably hate me, but know the only reason I'm placing such heavy loads on you is because I want you all to be the best. He said to them. I'm not doing this unless I knew that you could make it. I'm sure you've heard about the incident the past days, and that could just easily be you it had happened to. I may be hard, but only so that you can push yourselves past your limits and be the heroes you've dreamt of becoming. Wow, you really do care about us. A voice said next to him, startling him. I guess you're just a big softy underneath your gruff exterior. Tur said. That does it. Eraserhead shouted and, reaching out, grabbed a body part and began to pull Toru. I'm getting you outfitted for a bell so you don't sneak up on me anymore. He exclaimed as he dragged her towards the school. Mr. Aizawa, that's my nose you're pulling. A figure was seen in a karaoke room. He had a microphone in one hand as he moved his body to the beat of the music and began to sing the words to the song. Oh, talking away. And I don't know what to say. Say it anyway. He turned around as he sang and looked on at the other occupant in the room, a terrified female with the appearance of a raccoon who was tied to a chair with ropes, frantically struggling against them, a look of fear on her face as he strutted towards her. The room revealed several other people in the room who were dead and bloody on the floor and couches, having been murdered by him. Today isn't my day to find you. Keep shying away. I'm be coming for your love, okay? As he approached, a chain dropped from his other hand with a blade attached to it that had blood dripping from it. He kept on his jovial attitude as he swaggered over to the fear-filled woman and placed the edge of the blade against her cheek. Take on me. A neat cut against her cheek, scraping against it, spilling 2 drops of blood, mixing in with the sweat and tears pouring down her eyes. He considered singing directly at her as if oblivious that he was cutting her up. Take me on. His weapon traced and moved against her throat, her body moving and shaking from fear so much it didn't have to apply pressure to it for her to cut herself on the blade as he pulled it back behind his head and she shut her eyes tight. "I'll be." A footstep was heard, and he turned his head, annoyance in his eyes as he saw a person enter the room, paying no attention to the massacre in the room. Knowing that this was important, the assassin dropped his weapon before quickly slitting her throat, making her bleed out. He stopped what he was doing and walked over to the figure in the room and respectfully bowed his head to his superior, who handed over to him an envelope. He took it in hand and, opening it, glanced at the message inside, knowing what the symbol inside it meant. "They call for my services and I shall answer," he said with a smile as his masters had summoned him and his scythe would soon taste blood. Next chapter of the Devil of UA alliances are being made as a planned attack is happening. Disclaimer: I don't own My Hero Academia. Mom, I'm home, Izuku Midoriya exclaimed as he opened the door to their apartment and stepped in. "Izuku? I didn't expect you back so soon from school," Inko said as she lifted up her head as she was shown seated on the couch watching television. "Yeah, it was starting to thunder and felt like rain, so I decided to head home first thing," Izuku responded to her. "Everything okay?" he asked as he walked around the house using his walking cane to guide him. "Yes, everything's fine," Inko replied, and Izuku looked on at her, sensing that something was off. He realized that his mother's heartbeat was irregular, meaning that she was lying to him. It was then that an announcement came from the TV. "We'll be back with more details about the attack after a word from our sponsors." "Attack?" Izuku repeated with confusion in his voice. "What are they talking about, Mom?" he asked her, but she didn't respond to him as she turned it off and stood up and went to the kitchen. "Mom, it's nothing that concerns you, Izuku. Wash up and get ready for dinner," she told him, dodging the question. Izuku looked on at her, wondering what was going on and what she was hiding from him. He thought back to what he heard the other day in class about how both criminals and heroes had been attacked by someone. Did it have something to do with that? Knowing that his mother would refuse to open up about it, he kept quiet, knowing he'd have to ask others for answers about what had happened. As the day turned into night and rain covered the area, two figures were seen standing in the rain alone in the street. One was clad in a business suit, looking like your average everyday businessman. The other was dressed in more casual wear, wearing a hood over his head. The two stood there at the assigned spot, waiting for several minutes until the area in front of them shifted and a small purple portal appeared in front of them. A figure slowly emerged from the portal, a pale blue-haired figure who had several hands attached to his person. Narrowing his eyes, he looked on at the two before him, the ones who would have been sent to meet with him. The first seemed to be no more than your average delinquent, whilst the other, there was something off about him. The way he stood there and his posture and his steely eyes that he possessed. What was most disturbing was, despite the rain coming down on him, he showed no concern. He didn't even seem to notice that he was being drenched. "Could you at least act like it bothers you?" "Freaks me out," he said to him, and the man didn't respond. "Come in, we have much to discuss," he said, motioning to the portal, and went back in it, and the two followed after him. They found themselves inside a dimly lit room, and in the room was a man who appeared to be made out of mist with glowing eyes, clad in an elegant suit. "I figured it would be more suitable for us if we talked and discussed our plans in comfort instead of out in the cold and wet," the being said to them. "This is Kurogiri, as you can tell. His quirk enables him to create portals and teleport people. As for me, I am Shigaraki, the current head of the League of Villains," the multiple-handed man said to the two. "I am Nobu Yoshioka. My superiors have sent me to meet with you," one who was clad in a business suit and appeared to be the senior of the two said. "Now that that's out of the way, I'm sure we can all agree on why we are meeting with one another," Kurogiri said, as this was a meeting between two organizations. "You seek our aid in your planned attack, do you not?" Nobu asked, not wasting any time, seeing no reason to keep himself waiting any longer than was necessary. We have received word that on Friday UA will be sending a class out to an area for training exercises. Far away and secluded, and All Might is believed to be there," Shigaraki said, not breaking his gaze on the two. "My masters are opposed to sending men on needless suicide missions," Nobu responded to him. "It's just a batch of fresh rookie students, barely out of the entry exam. Kurogyari said, speaking up. They will be no threat to us. Our main target and priority is All Might. Correct, he is the end-of-level boss we're gunning for, the rest are just peons to be swept aside. Shigaraki said to him. You seek to claim his head as a trophy, do you not? But to secure victory you need our clan's aid in doing so. It is better to be over-prepared to sure things go your way, is it not? Kurogyari said to him. All Might is an enemy to us all. His death would be a great burden lifted off our shoulders if he is no longer amongst the living, is it not? True, Nobu answered him. My masters, after being hidden for so long in the shadows, have decided that now is the time to strike and remind the world of who we are. Our forces are ready for the attack. We shall carve out a glorious victory by day's end. We have amassed many who are eager and willing to be the one who ends All Might's life. Shigaraki said, clutching a hand into a fist. They won't know what happened, and All Might, the so-called symbol of peace, will be dead at the end of the level. Yes, and from witnessing those who've been recruited, I'm sure that if you all gang up and attack at once, you might be able to steal a baby's lollipop. Nobu said in response, and his associate laughed in response, finding humor in it. The pale man let loose a growl. Did I offend you? The older man asked in a sarcastic tone. Shigaraki stepped forward in anger. Careful, I've slain far more dangerous foes than you. I've shown you respect by coming here, you would be wise to return it. He told him, and Shigaraki snarled dangerously in response. Shigaraki calmed down. Kurogyari said to him, knowing his temper and reaction to being insulted. Taking a deep breath to restrain himself, he looked on at Nobu. Cut the bullshit, is your organization willing to help us or not? He said, demanding answers. We will assist in the attack, we shall lend you 5 including my associate Scythe. Nobu responded, and his associate revealed a weapon on his person which earned him his name. Only 5. The blue-haired figure said, narrowing his eyes. Are you mocking us with sending only that? Do not mistake numbers as strength. 5 of our clansmen are more than equal in contribution than your entire army. Nobu said to him. For if this does go well and All Might is slain, then my masters shall be more open to working with you in the future. Our secret weapon we have created is more than capable of destroying All Might, as well as your men should they get any idea about stepping out of line. They will follow my orders the way characters on a RPG do, understand? Shigaraki said, If it will make you happy, then so be it. Nobu responded to him. Then it's agreed. Shigaraki said and reached out and extended his hand out to cement the partnership. Nobu, however, did not return it. Come now, surely you trust us? Kurogyari asked him. Yakuza are bound by codes of honor, are you not? Who said anything about us being Yakuza? Scythe said, speaking up for the first time. I have learned that in my years, the most dangerous words one can tell another is, trust me. Nobu said as he stood up. We trust you no more than a snapping turtle would trust an alligator. Scythe and our chosen warriors shall be sent to you for the attack soon. We shall take our leave now. Very well then, Kurogyari said and created a portal which would take them back outside. He and Shigaraki watched on as they entered it and departed. You should have sent the 2 BSS to Nomu's lair. Shigaraki said with a hiss at how they had acted towards him. That way we could send whatever parts he didn't mangle back to their leaders. He said, angrily clutching a fist, wanting nothing more than to put all 5 of his digits onto his smug face and wipe it right off. Come now, it is unbecoming of a leader to let his emotions control him. A voice said, and in the back of the room a small laptop came on. Master? Shigaraki said and immediately bowed his head as he stood in front of the laptop. A black screen was shown, but only a voice could be heard. Is it truly worth allying ourselves with them? He asked, his tone now respectful and subdued. You still have much to learn, my young pupil, the voice coming from the laptop responded to him. There are times when one must put aside differences in order to achieve their goals. Do not underestimate them and the benefits of allying with them. Their strength and resources is comparable to ours. The voice calmly lectured him. Plus, I am in talks with another potential ally who I hope to sway over to my side. Someone in America who wields and holds considerable power in the underworld and whose name strikes fear into all there. Yes, master. Shigaraki said, bowing his head. Move forward with the planned attack. In 2 days I look forward to hear the reports of your success. The voice said, and the screen went black as the computer turned off on its own. The psychotic villain nodded his head and turned to his second in command. See to it that Nomu is ready, and keep him hungry as well. He works best on an empty belly. He said to Kurogiri. We will sick him on our so-called new friends if they try anything after we kill All Might. But Kurogiri protested. I know what he said. Shigaraki snapped a wild look in his eyes. And provided they follow my commands there won't be any need, but we will remind them that it's the League of Villains that are the most powerful force out there. I don't understand why we gotta bother with English. The red-headed student grumbled the next day as he left the class with others. I mean, I'm never going to England, so why do I gotta bother? Kirishima asked out loud. He was ignored by most of his classmates as 1A was finished with the class and heading to lunch. Kaminari, Izuku's voice called out, and the electric quirk user stopped and turned around seeing him approach him. What's up? He asked, curious as to why he called out to him. Have you heard anything recently? I heard that there was another attack as of late. He asked the blonde. Huh, you saw the news as well, I guess. Yes, some nightclub got attacked the other day. Was it a front for villains or something? No, unlike the other place, this was just your local hangout to go and have a good time and dance. When it was time to shut down, the managers went to a VIP room and saw that the inhabitants inside had all been killed. All of them had been cut by some blade of sorts. But that wasn't the strangest thing. What do you mean? The police discovered a print that had been drawn. Apparently one of the victims in their last moments drew something on the table before dying. A drawing of a hand. A hand? What does that mean? Your guess is as good as mine. Denki replied, and Izuku thought it over as that was what his mother was hiding from him. It was unsettling that a massacre would occur so sudden with no survivors. Whatever this is about, I'm sure that it'll be put a stop to soon. A voice said, and Tenya Ida stepped forward, having overheard their discussion. The glasses-wearing hero joined them. Whomever this person may be, they won't be around for much longer, I assure you. He said to them. You seem pretty confident, Kaminari said to him, and Tenya smiled as his glasses shined. You forget that my brother is one of the finest heroes of the current generation who inspires many who work for him to bring out the best. Tenya said with a hint of pride in his voice. Should whoever this person be continue to show their face, my brother will stop them. He said to them. You look up to your brother, don't you? Izuku asked him, and he nodded. He is my idol and my hero, Tensei, or Ingenium as he is known. Once he spots an evildoer, will never let them escape. I can only hope to match his exploits one day. He told them. Now come on, let's forget about this as it's not our place for now to worry about villains. He said and went to the cafeteria. After lunch had ended, Class 1A was having hero training and got into their outfits. Izuku looked on, running his fingers over the new hero costume he had. The mask had been replaced with a new design. Instead of looking like All Might's face, it was now different as the bottom part had been adjusted and removed so his mouth could be seen as well as enable him to breathe. The slots in the eyes were now lensed and colored as well. As well on the mask were a pair of small pointed horns. Lifting it up, he slipped it over his head, the mask fitting easily, and also the fabric in it would protect his ears now. Nice new getup. Kirishima complimented him as he put on his own outfit, and Izuku nodded his head in appreciation. He had made many friends in the short time he had been enrolled at and attending UA Shinso, Kirishima, Tenya for starters. He had stayed away from Katsuki though, the two not interacting with one another as both were still on probation from the incident with one another the first day. So long as Katsuki didn't bother him though, then he wasn't going to interact with him. Hello Izuku, a female voice said after he exited the changing room, and he turned his head in the direction of it who also had been dressed and waiting. Hi Tsuyu, he said with a smile to the frog girl who quickly was becoming his best friend here. Tsuyu had made him feel welcome being the first person here to do so. Are you ready for today's assignment? She asked curiously to him. Yeah, how's your siblings? He replied to her. They are good. My parents got home yesterday from their business meeting so I can have time to myself. The girls have asked if I want to join them shopping after school today, but I was wondering what you was up to. Well, I'm not doing much, Izuku said as he was focusing on using the time off from school to perfect using 10% of one for all. I hope you have a good time with them. After getting dressed, Class 1A went to the assigned room where they would be trained at. The place was a large room with a run-down building in it, and on the top of it dangling was a dummy the shape of a person. Welcome, Class 1A. A voice said as a busty woman clad in a skin-tight outfit that empathized her figure and had a red mask on over her face said as she stepped forward as she spoke in an excited tone. I am your instructor for this event, Narumi Kayama. But you all know me as Midnight. The fan service woman said as she waved a whip in her hand. I hope you are all ready for a steamy experience. The pro hero said to them. Man, what a babe. Denki said with a grin, pleased to see her. Maybe she'll give us some private tutor dash. He was interrupted when he got smacked upside the head by one of Jairu's earjacks. Get your mind out of the gutter. Jairu said to him. This is an old favorite practice of mine, called Rescue the Civilian. Midnight declared, waving her cat o'9 tails whip. The premise is simple enough. A civilian is dangling from the roof and needs to be saved. We are going to have 1 versus 1 matchups where the first person to rescue them wins the contest. This is all about speed and reaction, knowing how to think on your feet. There are plenty of obstacles and hazards as well that you must look out for. And while I endorse a good competitive matchup, there is to be no cheating, no attacking, and no foul play. At least not that I can see, at least. She said with a wink before reaching out with her whip and touching Koji's chin with it, making him tilt his head up. Is that clear, big boy? Yes. Why, yes, ma'am. The rock-faced student nervously answered, blushing deeply. Good, now then our first matchup is Midnight and Drew names. Oh, Izuku Midoriya versus Rikido Satu. Step forward, you 2 hunks. She said, making her announcement. Hey, good luck out there and maybe the best man win. Rikido said good-naturedly to him as he pat him on the back as the two were prepared to begin. Ready? Start. Midnight shouted, waving her whip. Rikido charged ahead, going straight into the building, while Izuku went to the side of the building looking to scale up it. Going up the wall, he came to a ledge and pulled himself up it. He felt around and detected a draft coming from one of the windows, which was opened, and went to it. But just as he did, his nose picked up the smell of smoke and ash, causing him to stop. Flames suddenly emitted from the window as it became lit and on fire, preventing him from passing through. Izuku backed away from the flames, covering his face up with his hands. Oh, a fire hazard has broken out, can't go that way. Midnight's voice exclaimed as she and the others looked on. Midoriya has been cut off while Satu has decided to do his hammer impersonation with the walls as nails. She said as Rikido was shown charging through the walls using his enhanced strength to do so. Izuku looked around, knowing that he couldn't go through the fire without risking injury, when he heard a swinging sound and noticed that there was a ladder nearby. Going into a run, he jumped and leapt, grabbing the edge of it and pulled himself up and began to climb it before reaching a set of stairs. Nice recovery. Bypassed the flaming windows and heading up top. Midnight said, taping her finger against her chin. While Rikido, it seems, is having trouble. She mentioned as the orange-clad hero was blocked by heavy objects in a room, requiring him to move them out of the way so he could pass. He went up them when they suddenly gave out beneath him, and he hanged on tightly to the railing. Oh, that building won't be holding up much longer, better hurry up, heroes. Midnight said as she continued to do commentary. Wait, what's Midoriya up to? She said as he got his baton out and undid the top and revealed cable rope hidden in it. Izuku took the rope and, swinging it, tossed it like a lasso, and it wrapped around the edge of the building, and he began climbing up it. Oh my! What an unexpected turn of events, way to bypass obstacles. It's making me all tingly inside. Midnight said with a squeal. Keep it up, heroes. Rikido had shoved a piano out of the way when he consumed a pastry, increasing his strength. He then grabbed a chair and threw it at the roof, creating a hole in it, and climbing the piano, scaled up the hole to the next floor. It's neck and neck, it's anyone's game. Izuku had reached the top of the rope when Rikido had created another hole in the way, causing him to nearly let go of the rope but recovered in the nick of time. He could hear him inside, and it appeared that he was closer to the rooftop than he was. His radar sense couldn't detect any holds or places for him to grab and climb up, and if Rikido smashed again he'd be risk getting knocked off. The civilian was nearby dangling from the roof, and it was then that an idea came to his mind as he produced the rope again and swung it wrapping around the side of the building. Rikido had reached the rooftop emerging from the building and smiled seeing the civilian, thinking that he had won as he ran at it, as all he had to do was touch it and he'd win. But to his shock, Izuku suddenly swung past him on the rope and grabbed the dummy. "Izuku's got the civilian, he wins." Midnight's voice shouted, proclaiming him the winner. Izuku swung around carrying the dummy, trying to figure out a way to get down now. It was too high up for him to drop down as he was trying to find a place to land. He then heard a creaking sound and realized that the rope was starting to give way due to the pressure. He swung around trying to find a ledge to land on when it strained, causing him to lose control and careen at the wall. His back hit the wall with a thud, causing him to grit his teeth and inhale sharply. The cable rope started to loosen but was then grabbed by Rikido, who caught it and pulled both of them up to the rooftop. "Thanks, Rikido," Izuku said after he had reached the top and set foot on the roof. "Good match there, Midoriya," Rikido said, taking the loss in stride. "I'm going to have to push myself further if I want to match you," he said and offered his hand, and Izuku took it and shook it as they congratulated one another. "Oh, what a display of showmanship," Midnight shouted. "That's what I call a dramatic climax. Now let's see who our next combatants are and if they can SMLT me just as much." Blood was seen sprayed all over the area as multiple bodies were seen sprawled on the floor of the warehouse. It looked like something out of a horror movie, but it was all too real as the inhabitants shown inside were all dead. Some with missing limbs that had been cut or blown off. An empty magazine was seen hitting the ground as a Saiga 12 shotgun was shown being reloaded. A figure was shown calmly reloading it, being no mind or attention to all the death that surrounded him. Deaths that he had caused, and should anyone show up like the last time, he would put them down on well. Villain, hero, it didn't matter. Finishing reloading, he looked on. Although there was no movement, he could tell that there was people who were still alive. He watched, waited and listened. He could hear the faint sound of someone breathing, which indicated where they was at, and turned and fired the shotgun. The bullet went and hit the wall, ricocheting off it, and drew out the one who was hiding. The criminal who had a fire quirk threw a fireball at him, which he dodged, and dropped the shotgun and charged at him. He dodged the attacks, moving faster than the eye could trace, and pulled out his katana that was strapped to his back. He swung the blade, aiming for their head, and the criminal leaned back and it just barely nicked his face, leaving a small cut and a trace of blood on the sword. That was all he needed. He consumed the blood, and the man suddenly found himself unable to move as he dropped to the ground, not understanding why his body had shut down. He didn't have much time to think it over though, as he was skewered and sent into an endless sleep which he would never wake up from. Pulling the blade out, the attacker looked on over and spotted the lone remaining figure in the room, as it was now just them. Name, Manabu Yusuke. Crimes, drag racketeering, arson, weapons smuggling. He said, listing all the charges against him throughout his criminal career. Was at the Gifu incident that occurred 2 years ago and apprehended 6 months later and then released from prison 2 weeks ago. He said as he took a step forward, looking like the Grim Reaper in person. "Leave me the hell alone," the man shouted as he fled, deciding not to fight like the others had. He jumped off the railing and landed on the floor, running to the door. His pursuer's feet hit the floor as well, and he saw him go. He dropped low into a crouch, and a kunai slipped out of his sleeve into his hand, and he threw it. The man cried out in pain as his knee was pierced, the blade going through it and sticking out the other side. He fell to the floor, clutching his leg, howling in agony as blood emerged from the floor. He crawled and tried to drag himself to the floor, but was stopped when the weapon was grabbed and then yanked right out of his leg, causing him to scream. He looked on at the one who had done it as he placed the weapon back, as he looked down on at him. "Come on, this isn't right. Heroes don't act like this," he protested, begging for mercy. "Do I look like a hero?" his assailant said, spitting out the word as though it was venom. He stepped on the knee, twisting and grinding his spiked boot into it, making it so the man could never walk on that leg again. He did it with no mercy, wanting him to have every second filled with pain. The same pain he had put others through with his actions. "Just let me go, I'll go back to prison, I swear." The man pleaded with him. "Yeah, what a wonderful idea," the vigilante said with a sneer. "Go to prison, bribe the guards to bring you 5-star meals every day while you lounge in your penthouse suite, and then when you get out of jail after claiming you'll be a good boy now on, start right where you left off," he said to him. "An endless DMN cycle over and over. You'd like that to happen, wouldn't you?" he said, towering over the fallen man. He then reached to a holster and pulled out a handheld firearm. This isn't justice," the criminal shouted at him. "You're right, it's not justice," he replied as he aimed the Glock. The gun went off and the bullet pierced the man's skull, killing him on contact. Smoke was seen emitting from the barrel of the gun as the man who held the firearm looked on with no remorse over what he had done. That was only a small part of a much bigger puzzle of what he needed to do. "It's punishment," he proclaimed before turning around and departing the scene, leaving none alive. That's it for this chapter. Review please. And now, in the spirit of the holidays, Class 1A is shown on stage standing in 2 rows of 10. Holiday music begins to play as they start to sing. Class 1A, Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer, had a very shiny nose. If you ever saw it, you would even saw it glows. Toru, like a light bulb. Aizawa, Toru. Class 1A, all of the other reindeer, used to laugh and call him names. Mina, like Schnatzola. Aizawa, Mina. Class 1A, they never let poor Rudolph join in any reindeer games. Kirishima, like strip poker. Aizawa, I'm warning you all. Class 1A, then one foggy Christmas Eve, Santa came to say, "Miss Joke, take it Aizawa." Aizawa, Rudolph, get your nose over here, so that you can guide my sleigh today. All might, oh Aizawa. Class 1A, then how the reindeer loved him, as they shouted out with glee, "Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer, you'll go down in history." Toru, like Attila the Hun. Aizawa, why you little... The next chapter of The Devil of UA. I'm sorry it's taken so long, but a lot's been going on. My stepfather passed away and I've had to help take care of my nephew these past months. Disclaimer, I don't own My Hero Academia. Back you vultures. Back I say. The voice of Present Mike could be heard trying to keep a horde of reporters from getting inside UA. With the reports that All Might was teaching at the school, they had descended onto the school like ants on sugar, trying to get in and get a glimpse of the famed hero, leaving Present Mike assigned to try and stop them. I'd reckon right now Present Mike would rather be fighting 100 enemies than dealing with the media. Principal Nizu said, looking out the window before turning around to look at the rest of the assembled heroes and teachers inside the room who he had called. "Now then, let's overgo what recently happened, Cementos?" he asked a man who was literally stone. At 900 hours, the UA alarm went off, indicating that someone had bypassed the defense barrier. He spoke up, his arms folded across his chest. "Thankfully. It was just a false alarm though. But it was not the media like most believed, I'm afraid," he said, and Nizu nodded his head. The students had nearly panicked and caused a riot, but thankfully Tenya Ida of Class 1A had managed to calm everyone down. "Correct, if the press had someone who could destroy the barrier, we would know about it," he said, looking on at the group. "I'm afraid that this is far more than an attempt at celebrity scandals," he told them. "Hound Dog, I want you and Ectoplasm to patrol the school today to make sure that no one who is not allowed here has snuck in after all. You two would be best suited with your quirks. Should you find someone, do not use any force to remove from the premises unless their intentions are ill," he said to the two, who nodded and departed. "Being a bit overreactive, aren't we?" Recovery Girl asked him, the elderly woman looking on at him behind her visor. "I'm afraid not. Anyone who could penetrate the barrier would only do so with an evil intent," he said, looking down at the floor in thought. "There's been a lot of talk going on lately. A mysterious group with little information or whereabouts, as well as this vigilante who's been going around killing with no hesitation. I've heard about this so-called vigilante as well. Midnight said, speaking up. He shot up another place the other day, using both guns and swords, it sounds like. He's attacking villains and criminals and heroes as well if they emerge and try to stop them. Indeed, no one knows who he is though. This person, whomever they may be, are highly trained and a force to be reckoned with. Sir, one of the teachers spoke up. He's only been targeting, from what I heard, those who are wanted and done crimes. I know his methods are extreme, but is he not doing the world good if he is eliminating them? Nizu shook his head in disapproval. No, it is not. I cannot condone these actions in any shape or form. The day a hero murders another in cold blood, even if it is a villain, is the day that they become no better than those they oppose and become everything they stand against. He told them as that was a line that could not be crossed. I see, sir, my apologies. Suddenly, the building shook as a loud noise was heard. What the hell? Midnight shouted as the school was shaking. Are we under attack? She asked as if expecting alarm bells to go off. DMNITMI. A voice shouted from within the school, the person's voice echoing all around. What the hell were you thinking, combining so many combustible elements together? The voice exclaimed. Sorry, sir. A female voice stated, apologizing. False alarm. Principal Nizu said as it was nothing to worry about. Can I get a refill, please? A voice asked in the small diner. That's the 4th cup I've poured you the past 15 minutes. The waitress said as she approached with a pot. I should instead just leave this here for you, she said as she refilled his cup. Don't know you, stranger, but you must work late nights if you drink that much. Thanks, the person said and took a long sip of coffee. There was few patrons in the diner he had stopped at, having come here to get food. It was small, out of the way, where people could come in and mind their own business, which was the way he liked it. 4 smooth and beautiful curls. Use the spray lotion that is endorsed by Pro Hero. A TV in the diner spoke up, showing a commercial with a woman with snakes in her hair advertising a product. He looked on at it and a look of disgust appeared in his eyes for a brief moment. And now, more details on the incident 2 nights ago at a warehouse. The TV then switched to the news, showing a man with antlers speaking up. This is the 5th incident the past month where several bodies have been found shot up and brutally maimed. Due to the graphic nature of the images, we cannot show them to you, the reporter said as the patron looked on at the screen. Details remain sketchy, but thus far, all have been linked to drag runners and smugglers. Police and heroes have not ruled out the possibility of gang wars erupting between them. Just what is going on nowadays? The waitress said as she turned the TV off, shaking her head. It's like everyone's gone crazy and shooting each other up, huh? She said as she turned around and saw the person who had been at the table had left without a word or sound. A couple bills left on the table. Outside, a van door was seen opening up and it was shown filled with many gadgets and equipment, as it was much larger on the inside, complete with a changing room. A figure stepped in and grabbed a katana that was hanging on the wall and turned on the police radio that was installed and listened in. It was an old model, but it was the best he could do with right now as he stepped into the room and stripped down. A voice then spoke up on it. All units and heroes, we have a reported drag deal going on. Any who's available proceed to the following coordinates. The voice said as the figure tied the bandana around his eyes and face and stepped out clad in his gear and picked up a rifle, strapping it across his back, and 2 sidearms he put into his holsters. Who's the dirtbag I'm after now? Stain said as he listened in and turned the keys and drove off, heading towards the destination. Class 1A was seen on a bus, being taken to where their hero exercise class was being held at for today. Clad in their hero outfits, they were all eager for what today's assignment would be. Of course, it would not go without incident. What you'd say? I'll kick your butt. You have 3 guesses as to who said that, and the first 2 don't count. I said that people aren't going to want a hero who only cares about himself. Tsuyu Azui calmly said to the fuming Katsuki. The explosion Quirk user looked ready to blow up at what Tsuyu had said. Heroes are meant to inspire and bring hope to others. You only want to be a hero so to satisfy your ego and inferiority complex you have. Tsuyu continued on to him. What the? Inferiority complex? You miserable beach. Katsuki shouted. Hold your tongue, such language is distasteful. Ibara Shiozaki said to him, criticizing him. Mind your own damn business, grass hair. Katsuki shouted at her before turning back to glare at Tsuyu, who seemed unfazed by his glare. If blowing steam out of your nose is supposed to be scary, I'm afraid you'll have to do more than that. You miserable wart-faced toad. Katsuki snapped at her. Tsuyu seemed unfazed at most of his words, but when he said that, her face flinched as he struck a nerve. You don't talk to her that way. Izuku, who had been quiet for the ride, said, suddenly standing up, glaring at Bakugo behind his mask. Keep your mouth shut, Katsuki. What are you going to do about it, Deku? Bakugo said, sneering at him. All of you shut up or I'm turning this thing around and giving you all Fs. Aizawa said from the front of the bus. Why didn't he call in sick today? The teacher peered from a mirror back at the class, who were now quiet. Midoriya had put his hand on Azui's to comfort her. Bakugo was at best tolerated by majority of the class, while Midoriya seemed to have a way to draw people to him. While Bakugo had been the most popular student at his middle school and Midoriya the exact opposite, the positions had changed now. He had done research on both of them. Bakugo was liked and admired for his quirks potential, which was a detriment, inflating his ego and sense of self-worth, while Midoriya was deemed useless and bullied because he didn't have one. But now that he didn't let it go to his head, as he was humble and never talked down to anyone. Two sides of the same coin they appeared to be. They soon arrived at their location and were dropped off. Hello class, and welcome to the Unforeseen Simulation Joint, also known as USJ. A hero clad in a spacesuit said as they welcomed the class to the place. My name is 13 and I shall be your instructor for today. He said, and was greeted warmly by the students, having heard of him. Hey, wait a sec, I thought All Might was supposed to be here? Kirishima asked, looking on as the muscular hero was absent. I'm afraid that before you arrived, All Might got called away on official business and sends his apologies that he wasn't able to attend today. 13 responded to them, which Aizawa knew was code for that his quirk had ran empty and couldn't hold it any longer. The class was led around as 13 gave a speech to them, detailing to them about the many obstacles and situations that a hero would be facing, and that the USJ housed multiple situations that they would be testing for rescuing people, such as burning buildings, water hazards, and others. Izuku listened in as he walked on, taking all the information in. But as he did, he suddenly detected something in the atmosphere, as it was changing, as though there was a disturbance in it. Mr. Aizawa? He said, speaking up. What? The shaggy-haired teacher said. Something's not right. Izuku told him. What do you mean? Aizawa said, a look of confusion on his face, as Izuku seemed disturbed by something. Something in the air seems off. He said to him, and many in the class were looking at him, wondering what he was talking about. Something's not right about back up, everyone. He exclaimed loudly as he detected a presence. The class stopped what they were doing and looked on as the lights in the building suddenly went out. In the distance, a dark purple portal the size of a ball appeared. Hey, what's going on? Denki said. This isn't part of the exercise, is it? He said as it got bigger and bigger. Stand back. Aizawa exclaimed to his students as suddenly a hand reached out and a person with multiple severed hands attached to his person emerged from it. Villains, he said with a spat. Hello, would-be heroes, allow me to answer your 2 questions. The ominous figure said as slowly, more and more emerged from the portal. Amongst them was a large figure with a beak-like mouth and its brain matter exposed. I'm Shigaraki, and we are the League of Villains. He said as dozens and dozens exited the portal. And for your second question, yes, these are real. He said, motioning to the hands on his person. The portal disappeared and another person made of smoke and fog appeared. Now please answer our questions. Would you mind telling us where All Might is? Kurogyri stated. All Might? Izuku said, looking on in alarm. Yes, you see, we wish to find him and kill him. Shigaraki said to them. Be a good little NPC and tell us, won't you? I'd hate for my friends to have to torture it out of you. He said, and many of the villains let out a laugh. Guys, I don't want to alarm you, but I think I'm going to lose control of my bladder. Denki said, freaking out as there seemed to be no end in sight to the villains. One however kept his cool and stepped forward, a look of determination on his face. "Oh, a lone fool against an army?" Shigaraki asked, amusement in his eyes, and Aizawa glared at him as he slipped on his goggles. "Let's kill this fool." "Snipers, fire!" A thug shouted, raising his cannon arms, but was unable to as nothing shot out. "What the?" Pow! Aizawa's boot caught him right under the chin, sending him flying backwards. He then punched another one in the face and then grabbing them tossed them into others. "You're dead!" A female villain shouted, her pigtails starting to spin rapidly as she charged him. Aizawa turned his gaze on her and her hairs suddenly stopped, reverting back to normal. "Huh," she said in confusion before she got wrapped up in his tape and hurled away. "That's Eraserhead," one of the villains shouted, recognizing what was going on. "Run!" Aizawa shouted at his class. "Get out of here now!" He ordered them, and he dodged an attack and punched a villain in the face. "What are you doing?" "As a go. 13, get them out of here," he shouted as he fought against them. "Class, hurry, we must evacuate immediately," 13 said to them, urging them to go. But Izuku started to protest. "This is not a video game or your Saturday morning cartoons. These villains will attempt to kill you all with no hesitation. We must go," he ordered them, rushing them along. "Kurogiri, do not let the brats escape," Shimura shouted, ordering him to pursue them. As 1A fled, they attempted to make contact but to no avail. "Communications are shot. We are unable to call you today for help," Achiko proclaimed as they couldn't get a reception. "The villains must have someone who can cancel out communications," Momo said as she was piecing it together. "Why the hell are we running? We should go back and kick their butts," Katsuki shouted, and despite being blind, Izuku rolled his eyes. "Yeah, and get slaughtered back there," he responded, and Katsuki snarled at him. "What you'd say, Deku?" "Enough, you two," Tenya said, stepping in between. "Children, all of you stay with me," 13 said to the class. "I'd guide you to safety, I promise," he told them as he led them. They were about to reach the exit when the villain made of smoke appeared. Now, it's rude to leave without saying goodbye," Kurogiri said to them. Kirishima and Bakugo charged and attempted to attack him, but he merely laughed as he wasn't fazed by their attacks. "Would you please tell me where All Might is? I don't believe violence is the only way to solve things, unlike my associates." "Stand back, children," 13 shouted and fired an attack from his fingers. Kurogiri saw, and it teleported out of the way and saw it hit a wall and destroy it. "Your black hole technique is as impressive as I've heard," Kurogiri said to him. "But I'd advise firing at me again." "We'll see about that. Nothing can withstand a black hole," 13 shouted and fired once more, and Kurogiri created a portal and the attacks went in them. "Teleporting attacks?" 13 said, caught off guard. Izuku suddenly detected something. 13, watch out. My quirk isn't just used for teleporting people, it can also transport other matters, namely my foe's attacks, Kurogiri said, and suddenly a portal appeared behind 13. "What?" he shouted as he saw his own attacks coming right at his back. "Farewell," Kurogiri said with a laugh, and Class 1A looked on in horror as the hero's body was ripped apart by his own black holes. The spacesuit hero collapsed to the ground, his outfit shredded. "You.Bsrd," Kirishima shouted at him at what he had done. It appears that there's too many bunched up. Let's play a little game of divide and conquer, shall we?" Kurogiri said, and he activated his quirk once more. Before any one of the students could react, several warp holes appeared beneath them and they fell through, plummeting downwards and disappearing without a trace. The villain looked on as he deactivated his quirk with a laugh as he had cut them in half. "This is proving to be a most entertaining development," he said as their army was ready to attack them. Hitoshi Shinsho and Toyakami Fumikage were seen, the two having been teleported to a location with hard gusts of wind. Hitoshi held onto his hat as they were being blown away, having been sent to the windstorm section. "Where is everyone?" he asked, looking on but didn't see anyone around. It was just the two of them, it appeared. He did not see any of the others. "Well, we've got to find a way to find the others and get out of here," he said and began to walk. As he did, he realized that his companion was not joining them and turned around and saw him standing like a statue. "What are you doing?" Hitoshi asked as Toyakami stood there against the side of the building, not moving a muscle. Suddenly dark shadow lunged out from him and struck the wall. A shriek was heard as a chameleon-like figure was shown, having blended in and attempting to ambush them. The villain let out a surprise at being attacked and started to run. Dark shadow, do not let him escape, Toyakami ordered, and the purple ghost went in pursuit and grew arms and, grabbing the villain by the tail, picked it up and slammed it onto the ground hard. The villain inhaled sharply in pain when he saw himself looking up at Hitoshi. "Aren't you a weakling?" Hitoshi said in a jeering tone. Weakling? I'll show dash." The villain started to respond only to fall under Hitoshi's brainwashing quirk. Toyakami stepped forward with dark shadow ready to attack, but Hitoshi held his hand up, motioning for him to stand down. "How are the villains able to cut off communications?" Hitoshi said, demanding to know. He remembered the others talking about how they weren't able to make contact and that they were being jammed somehow. "One of us is capable of shorting out communications with his quirk," the chameleon villain stated, answering without fail. "I see, which one?" Hitoshi asked him. "The one who has electricity." "Are you sure he's telling the truth?" Toyakami asked, a skeptical look on his face, and Hitoshi nodded his head. "Indeed, my quirk forces people to do whatever I tell them to, including telling the truth. We need to find one who matches the description and subdue him," Hitoshi said to him. "That way we can get communications back up and contact UA." "All right then, what should we do with him?" "Take him prisoner," the bird hero said, motioning to the villain, but Hitoshi shook his head. "They won't care for their own, and we can't be delayed with burdens right now. See that building over there?" he said, motioning to it, and the villain nodded. "Ram your head into it," he ordered him. The villain stood up and charged at the building, slamming into it and knocking himself out. "Let's go," Hitoshi said, taking charge. Elsewhere, Izuku felt someone nudging him, trying to wake him up. Pulling himself up, the blind hero in training got to his knees. "Where am I?" "Izuku," a voice said, and he recognized it as Ibris. "Thank the Lord you are okay," the Christian girl said to him. "Ibra," Izuku said, shaking his head. "What's happened?" he asked. "It appears that the villain back has transported us," Ibra said to him. "We're in a mountain range of the USJ. Shoto is here as well," she informed him, and off to the side, keeping a lookout, was the dual quirk user. Izuku stood up, getting his bearings. "Where are the others? Tsu, Kirishima?" "I'm afraid I don't know," Ibra said, shaking her head. "From the way it appears, we've been all separated," Shoto said, speaking up as he turned to face them. "There's several places here, so I wager that we all got sent to different places on random. They're trying to pick us off one by one," he said, and Izuku nodded his head. "That makes sense. I just hope the others will be okay," Izuku said as he got his walking stick and turned it into his baton weapon. "I have the feeling we're going to have to fight soon," he told them, and Shoto nodded. "I know you're not willing to use violence, Ibra, but we're in danger here," he told her, and the Christian girl nodded. "Let's find a way to get off this mountain and hopefully find the others," Shoto said, and the three began to go. They didn't get far when Izuku suddenly held up his hand, ordering them to stop. "What is it?" Ibra asked him. "We're not alone," Izuku said as he felt like a gazelle being stalked by a cheetah right night. "I don't see anything. Our enemies are highly trained in stealth, I'm afraid," he responded, and his companions looked on as if expecting to be attacked any moment. "Both of you keep your guard up," Shoto said to them. "Until we meet up with the others, we are in grave danger," he told them, and the three slowly went on, trying to find a way down the mountain so they could join up with the others. 5 figures clad in the red attire of the shinobi were shown, having scaled the mountain in secret before Class 1A had even gotten to the USJ, and had been waiting in preparation. Each with their faces and heads covered up by hoods as they were seen. Each possessing a weapon, and the leader, who wore black with his costume, had a scythe in hand. Making motions with his hands to communicate via sign language, he ordered them to follow their targets, and more silent than the dawn they pursued.